I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is our regularly scheduled meeting of April 25th. Madam Clerk, please do the roll call.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Mr. Weddleton.
Here.
Mr. Rivera.
Present.
Mr. Steele.
Here.
Ms. LaFrance.
Here.
Mr. Trainee.
Here.
Mr. Dunbar.
Here.
Mr. Croft.
Proud to be here.
Mr. Peterson.
Present.
Mr. Constant.
Here.
Ms. Demboski.
Present.
Mr. Dyson. Here. You have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Ms. Rose Foley, could you lead us in the pledge, ma'am?
Let's stand up.
Thank you, Rose.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, ma'am. I'd like to welcome our new Assembly members that are here for their first meeting. Thanks for joining us. It should be a fun trip. We're now down to minutes of previous meetings. There are none. Mayor's report, Mr. Mayor, sir?
Nothing to report, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Assembly Chair's report. People have been wondering what committees they're on. And rather than send out impersonally electronic mail, I've got it here for you. First, if you want to go down that way, I'll go down this way. Forrest and I worked on this committee assignment to make sure we think we've gotten everybody where we'd like to have them. And we went over your resumes and what you've got in the clerk's office. And so we picked out some nuggets of things that indicate you've got the ability to do that. So we've got this list. And the clerk put in the back there, schedule regular assembly committee meetings to let you know when the regular committee meetings are assigned. The only real big change on here is the homelessness committee. We no longer have a committee of the whole. So it's now just a committee rather than committee of the whole. Other than that, there's really not that many changes on here. So this is what we'll do. And Mr. Dyson, I'm working on the Cook End Agriculture Association. They tell me the administration appointed somebody, but they're going to send me a list on if they'd like to have you or not, or how we get rid of the person the administration appointed. Because that should have been something the Assembly did, and I'm sorry in years past we haven't. Thank you, sir. Okay, we're now down to committee reports. Mr. Wilson, sir.
The Community Economic Development Committee has been very busy, as you will hear as we get near the agenda. And I look at your list of committee meeting assignments, and there must be an error because it has us meeting every single week.
Well, then you just let our clerk's office know what you're actually doing, sir. It seems to meet a lot of Thursdays, though.
It does. Thank you.
Mr. Rivera.
Thank you. I'm honored to chair the Committee on Homelessness, and our next meeting is Wednesday, May 17th. Thank you.
Mr. Steele, sir.
And no report, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. France.
Nothing to report.
Thank you. Mr. Dunbar.
The Transportation Committee did not meet in April, but I intend to have a meeting at some point in late May to discuss the sale that is now ongoing of the new permits because the repeal effort failed. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Croft, sir.
Nothing to report.
Oh, yes, you do. You're head of our Public Safety Committee. You should be holding a hearing on our new police chief at some point in time. We have confirmation hearings on executive appointees. So I expect you to hold a confirmation hearing on the new police chief, sir.
We will be holding a confirmation hearing on the new police chief at a time and date to be announced.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Constant, excuse me. I missed Pete. Mr. Peterson, sir.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have an Ethics and Election Committee meeting that's scheduled for tomorrow that's been canceled. So if you're planning on attending, you don't need to show up. We've already met earlier a couple of weeks ago and went over what happened in this most recent election, so we get the rest of the month off. We'll see you next month. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Constant, sir.
Yeah, I do know that the AMATS Policy Committee is meeting this Thursday at 1:30.
So you'll be there?
I will be there.
Want to keep you busy. Ms. Dombrowski, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Trini. Chair Trini, I would just like to request, actually, Mr. Croft, extra time for the public safety confirmation meeting, because I'm sure we'll need it. Just kidding. Mr. Trini, I just have 2 declarations to make tonight. Item 9 Delta 10, it's AM 323-2017, sole source purchase for boots for the Anchorage Fire Department, and introduction item 9F6 AR 2017-155 fire facility upgrades. Mr. Trini, my husband is a member of the IAFF Local 1264 and a fire captain with the Anchorage Fire Department. He is a member of a large class, so this won't have, I'm sure he's getting new boots, but it's a de minimis part of what's in front of us. But I make the declaration for you and the public.
Thank you. You do not have a conflict. You're directed to not run away, but deal with both these items, ma'am. Thank you for letting us know, Amy. Oh, there may be another one when I get down to resolutions for action later on the consent agenda, addendum agenda. It's 9B3, Resolution 2017-162. Resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly authorizing the administration to begin collective bargaining negotiations with the International Association of Firefighters, Local 1264.
Yeah, that one, the only thing the body has in the past said that I shouldn't participate on is direct contract issues, being the actual contract.
Okay, just wanted you to know about that.
So I should make the declaration for that one too and ask to be excluded from participation on that one.
You're excused.
Thank you.
Mr. Dyson, sir. Thank you, Mr. Dyson. Okay, we've gone through committee reports. We're now down to item 8 on here, addendum to the agenda, laid on the table items. Mr. Dunbar, if you could make a motion to incorporate laid on table items and addendum to the agenda, I'll go through it.
Motion to incorporate.
Okay. We've got the sheet of paper here. It's addendum to the agenda. It is item 9B3. It's resolution air 2017-162, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly authorizing the administration to begin collective bargaining negotiations with the International Association of Firefighters, Local 1264 IAFF. I'm submitted that to the Assembly. And then we've got some laid on the table items. I'll go through them. Okay, the first one is item 9A7. It's AR 2017-141. Resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly recognizing and honoring Julia Tucker, Assembly Council, for her 12 years of service to the Anchorage Assembly. The next one is item 9B1A. It's AR 2017-143, conditional protest regarding the new restaurant eating place liquor license 5549 for Bed and Brew, LLC, and special land use permits for alcohol. The next one is laid on the table item is 14K2. It's 2017-139S, a resolution of the municipality of Anchorage revising and appropriating funds for the 2017 general government operating budget for the municipality of Anchorage. Next laid on the table item is item 14L2. It is AO 2017-69S, an ordinance setting the rates of tax levy appropriating the amount of municipal property tax, living taxes for all service areas of the municipality of Anchorage, municipality of Anchorage general government for 2017. The next one is item 14M2. It's 2017-72S. An ordinance revising and appropriating the funds for the 2017 municipal utilities / enterprise activities operating in capital budgets, municipal light and power, ML&P, and Anchorage water and wastewater utility, AWWU, reimbursable projects, ML&P, BRU gas field fund, ML&P contributed plant, and revising and approving the 2017-2022 municipal utilities / enterprise activities capital improvement programs. Does anybody have an additional laid on the table item that I haven't gone through? Not seeing anybody. Appreciate that. Need a motion on the consent agenda, Mr. Do I have any objection to the incorporation of the addendum agenda? Not seeing any objection, Madam Clerk. It's not objected by anybody. Mr. Dunbar, I need a motion on the consent agenda.
Move to approve. Oh, yeah,
I'm
we,
doing that after this. Is there a second on that? Well, okay. Mr. Whittleton, we'll start with you, sir.
I'd like to pull
Anything you wish to
9A1.
pull? What, sir?
9A1.
Mr. Rivera.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to pull 9A6 and 9B1.
Thank you. Mr. France, excuse me. Mr. Steele.
9A2, I'd like to pull.
Mr. France.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to pull and read 9A3.
Mr. Dunbar, sir.
I'd like to pull 9A4 and 9A5.
Thank you. Mr. Croft, sir.
Nothing to pull.
Mr. Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No items this evening.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Constant.
Yes, please. I'd like to pull 9D6.
Say 9B6.
D as in dog.
9D6, okay.
Also, I don't want to pull item 9F2, but I'd like to schedule a work session or ask to have a work session scheduled. And 9F3, I'd like to be added as a sponsor.
We can take care of that. We'll take care of that, sir.
Thank you.
Ms. Dombowski, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 9 Bravo 3, 9 Delta 8,
9 Bravo 3 and 9 Delta 8.
and 9 Alpha 7.
Okay. Mr. Dyson. Okay. Go through it, Madam Clerk, make sure I got them all down there. 9A1, 9A4, 9B1, 9A2, 9A3, 9A4, 9A5, 9D6, 9B3, 9D8, 9A7, and 9C4.
Did you get 9 Bravo 1? Okay.
No, I didn't.
Oh, I did. So he didn't.
I was going to say, I heard it somewhere.
I got it earlier.
Yeah, 9A6.
I got 98 here and 96 is here. I got
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
did you pull 9A6?
That was pulled by you, Felix.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's vote on the balance of the consent agenda. We've got a couple yet. I know I'm going to do you in a minute. Mr. Dyson, I need you to vote, sir. Ms. Dombowski, ma'am. Okay. The voting is unanimous on the consent agenda. Mr. Dunbar, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make a motion to change the order of the day to take up 9 Alpha 4 before 9 Alpha 1 to accommodate our police department.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any objection? Not seeing any objection. We change order of the day. We're now down to item 9A4, Resolution 2017-151, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly recognizing May 5th, 2017 as Police Memorial Day and an opportunity for remembering and honoring those who have made the ultimate sacrifice in service for our community.
Move to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Ask a second. Ask unanimous. That is absolutely approved. Who is here from the police department?
May I read the resolution, Mr. Chairman?
Absolutely, sir.
A resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly recognizing May 5th, 2017 as Police Memorial Day and an opportunity for remembering and honoring those who have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to our community. Whereas Police Memorial Day is an opportunity to pay tribute to the memory of fallen law enforcement officers who have made the ultimate sacrifice for our community, and to recognize those who currently serve by enforcing our laws, bringing criminals to justice, and making our communities safer. And whereas all law enforcement officers deserve appreciation for the work they do, and citizens of the municipality of Anchorage fulfill an important civic responsibility by supporting the work of law enforcement in protection of our community, and whereas behind the name of each who died in the line of duty lies a story of courage and devotion, as well as a deep sense of loss for the service, the country, and above all for friends, family, and partners, and whereas we can never repay these gallant men and women for their service nor adequately comfort their families, we can only honor their memory, not only in words and ceremony, but in our determination to forge a stronger, safer community which they helped purchase with their lives. And whereas since 1897, 68 law enforcement officers have fallen statewide, including the following Anchorage Police Department officers who gave their lives in the line of duty: Chief John Sturgis in 1921, Officer Benjamin Strong in 1968, Chief Harry C. Kavanaugh in 1924, Officer William G. Fallmer, Jr. in 1970, Officer Jonathan P. Flora, 1975, Officer Harry Keir, 1980, Officer Harry B. Hansen, Jr., 1986, Officer Louis G. Mazzelli, 1989, Officer Dan R. Seeley, 1996, and Officer Justin T. Woolham, 2001. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Anchorage Assembly remembers and honors all those officers who have died in the line of duty by recognizing May 5th, 2017 as Police Memorial Day. Be it further resolved that the Anchorage Assembly encourages all residents to thank the men and women who serve our community and protect our citizens, and to honor and remember the fallen who gave their lives in this service. Passed and approved by the Anchorage Assembly this 25th day of April, 2017.
Let's stand for a moment. Silence if we could. We've lost a lot of friends. They've lost a lot of family members in this. Thank you. Chief?
I'd just say on behalf of all the employees of the Anchorage Police Department, I'd like to thank the Assembly for honoring our fallen officers today and your continued support as we carry out our mission of public safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on poll is item 9A1, Resolution AR 2017-148, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly recognizing and honoring Sherry Douglas for 32 years of excellent public service to the municipality of Anchorage. That was pulled by you, Mr. Wilton, I believe.
There's someone here.
We'll need a motion to approve, sir.
I'll move to approve.
Is there a second? Moved in second. Is there any objection? Not seeing any objection. That's approved. Is she here? Who's presenting and who's reading?
I will read.
Okay.
Resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly recognizing and honoring Sherry Douglas for her 32 years of excellent public service to the municipality of Anchorage. Whereas Sherry Douglas has diligently and professionally served the municipality of Anchorage since September 1984, when she began her service with the Anchorage Public Library as a library assistant, and after completing graduate school in 1987 as a youth services librarian. And whereas, during her tenure as Youth Services Director, Sherry launched several critical projects to improve youth literacy and community engagement: the Ready to Read Resource Center, the Play and Learn Center, and Teen Underground. And whereas, in her most recent role as the Assistant Director of Public Services, Sherry has served as the library's project manager for the $15 million renovation of the Lusac Library entrance, and spearheaded several initiatives to increase productivity and job satisfaction for library employees. And whereas Sherry is one of the most passionate and effective library champions in the state of Alaska, has been the driving force behind many of Anchorage Public Library's successful initiatives and has mentored countless library staff. And whereas Sherry's dedication to creating a better community is exceptional, her library expertise will be difficult to replace, and she will be missed by all who know and have worked with her. Now, therefore, the Anchorage Assembly hereby recognizes and honors Sherry Douglas for her dedication to the municipality of Anchorage and its citizens, passed and approved by the Anchorage Assembly this 25th day of April 2017.
Thank you to all of you on the Assembly for this honor. I just feel so grateful to have had the opportunity to serve the city of Anchorage and the people of our community. I'm especially pleased to have one of my Storytime kids in the audience, Erin back there, who I presented Storytime to her since she was a little baby, and it just shows how the work that you do in the municipality can have a great impact. Now she's on her way to Washington, D.C., in a national competition to represent our state. So I'm just really grateful to all of you for the work you do, and nothing without the team. We have a wonderful team at Anchorage Public Library, and I hope you'll all come out when they open the new entryway at the end of June. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Next item in front of us is item A2, Resolution AR 2017-149, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly recognizing and honoring Robin Kent for her 17 years of service with the municipality of Anchorage.
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ask unanimous. See no objection. That is approved. Mr. Steele, who's reading? Who's presenting?
I'm reading. Resolution AR 2017-149, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly recognizing and honoring Robin Kent for her over 17 years of service with the municipality of Anchorage. Whereas Robin Kent began her service with the municipality of Anchorage in 2000 as a public health nurse for the Department of Health and Human Services. And whereas for 17 years she has provided high-quality health care to men and women of Anchorage, including helping women with family planning, conducting disease screening and treatment, offering clients education and counseling. And whereas Robin generously shared her reproductive health knowledge and expertise with reproductive health clinic staff, cheerfully training and answering questions from staff both new and experienced. And whereas Robin worked diligently to remove barriers to reproductive health care by providing service both at DHHS main clinic as well as at the Power Teen Clinic and multiple outreach locations. And whereas Robin has participated in guiding adolescents through their teen years by offering and a listening ear, helpful guidance and education. And whereas Robin has provided this tremendous service to the community while also excelling in her roles of wife, mother, and friend. And whereas Robin is always eager to volunteer with disease sweeps and mass testing for communicable diseases. And whereas Robin has always been willing to help out with other programs within DHHS, including back-to-school immunizations, and has participated in immunizing close to 1,000 students in a single season. Now, therefore, the Anchorage Assembly hereby recognizes and honors Robin Kent for her 17 years of service and dedication to the municipality of Anchorage and the citizens of Anchorage. Passed and approved by the Anchorage Assembly this 25th day of April 2017.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you for having the municipality and the great reproductive health clinic. It's been my pleasure to work with the citizens of Anchorage, and I am confident in my successors. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next item in front is item 9A3, Resolution Air 2017-150, Resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly recognizing and honoring Karen Kurtz for 30 years of exemplary public service to the municipality of Anchorage. That was pulled by you, Ms. LaFrance.
Move to approve.
Is there a second? Ask unanimous? Seeing no objection, that is approved. Who's reading? Who's presenting?
I'm reading, Mr. Chairman.
Who's presenting? Would we? Ms. Dombrowski, ma'am?
They all gave.
Small technical, we'll get it.
That works for me. Come on, Mom. Come on up.
A resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly recognizing and honoring Karen Kurtz for 30 years of exemplary public service to the municipality of Anchorage. Whereas Karen Kurtz began working at the municipality in 1987, first at facility maintenance at Public Works, and then in the municipal clerk's office before becoming a police call taker in 1989 and a police dispatcher in 1991. Whereas Karen proved herself to be a leader among dispatchers, setting the standard for excellence. Whereas Karen received Chief's Letters of Recognition in July 2003, February 2006, January 2010, and March 2014 for outstanding performance. Whereas Karen was awarded Non-Sworn Employee of the Year for the years 2001, 2005, and 2009. Whereas in 2005, Karen was the APD coordinator for installation and implementation of the E911 system upgrade. Karen was the tester of the new software, advisor of needed capabilities, coordinator of fire and police dispatch resources with the vendor, and advisor to the APD command staff and the mayor's office for the many 911 issues that came up. Whereas Karen has for many years diligently compiled and tracked call volume and section staffing data for APD command staff. Whereas Karen has taught geography to police officer academies and police dispatch academies and helped maintain the mapping database. Whereas Karen's keen intellect, creative problem solving, attention to detail, compassion, mental stamina, work quality, work ethic, and commitment to public service and public safety greatly served the municipality during her career at the Anchorage Police Department. Now, therefore, the Anchorage Assembly hereby recognizes and honors Karen Kurtz for her significant contributions to the municipality and citizens of Anchorage during her 30-year career, passed and approved by the Anchorage Assembly this 25th day of April 2017.
There's a quote in dispatch, there's no crying in dispatch, but we're not in dispatch right now, so I'm going to shed a few tears. Thank you all very much. It's been an honor to serve my community. It's been amazing to work for the Anchorage Police Department and to be part of a team that gets to catch bad guys and save lives. It's been wicked cool. I've watched day in and day out the members, both sworn and non-sworn, of the Anchorage Police Department do tremendous acts with compassion, caring, and bravery, and it's made me a better person and inspired me to be a better dispatcher, and I've hoped inspired others in my path. I could not have done this because there's been some really terrible times to go with all the good times. I could not have done this without the love and support of my husband, my family, my amazing APD family, and the APD Employees Association. Thank you for this honor.
Next item in front of us is item 9A for a resolution error 2017-152, resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly honoring and congratulating the North Stars 16-U girls hockey team as the USA Hockey 2017 Tier 2 2A national champions. Mr. Dunbar, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to move to postpone this until a meeting of May 9th. There was a little bit of a miscommunication, and the team isn't here tonight, so I'd like them to be present. So,
is there a second? Moved and seconded to move this to May 9th. Ask unanimous consent. Seeing no objection, they'll be back in front of us on May 9th, sir. Thank you. Next item in front of us, item 9A6, resolution 2017-161, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly honoring WYCA Alaska and recognizing April 2017 through 30th, 2017 as Stand Against Racism 2017. Mr. Rivera, you pulled that, sir. I'll need a motion.
Move to approve.
second.
Ask unanimous. See no objection, that is approved. Mr. Rivera, are you reading or presenting, sir?
Reading, Mr. Chairman.
Who's presenting? Mr. Peterson is. Is there somebody here from the YMCA? Mr. Rivera, read it anyway.
All right. A resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly honoring YWCA Alaska and recognizing April 27th through the 30th, 2017 as Stand Against Racism 2017. Whereas YWCAs in America and around the world have a rich history of advocating for racial justice, guided by the one imperative to eliminate injustices in employment, education, healthcare, housing, human services, and other areas that affect the quality of an individual's life, and to eradicate the barriers that divide us and that perpetuate racism and other forms of oppression. And whereas the YWCA is dedicated to eliminating racism, empowering women, and promoting peace, justice, freedom, and dignity for all, and in 2008 initiated the Stand Against Racism movement in order to build community among those who worked for racial justice and to raise awareness about the negative impacts of institutional racism in our society. And whereas girls of color encounter the same harsh realities of institutional and structural racism as do boys of color, as well as other challenges that are unique to their color and gender, the Stand Against Racism 2017 theme is Women of Color Leading Change. And whereas since 1989, the YWCA Alaska has been part of the international YWCA movement, which serves more than 25 million women and girls in over 100 nations, has participated in the National Stand Against Racism event since 2010, and will host a Stand Against Racism 2017 community event featuring the Clark Middle School Informers and the Dancers Workshop Youth Company at 4 p.m. on April 27, 2017, at the Bear and Raven Adventure Theater located at 315 E Street. And whereas the YWCA Alaska will collaborate with organizations and individuals throughout Alaska to host a variety of Stand Against Racism 2017 events and invites the community to participate in Stand Against Racism 2017 activities in Alaska, while over 2,200 organizations and 300,000 will be participating in activities nationwide. And whereas the effectiveness of our American society, the strength of the state of Alaska, and the vitality of our Alaska communities, like Anchorage, depend on the success of organizations such as the YWCA Alaska. Now, therefore, the Anchorage Municipal Assembly honors the YWCA Alaska for its dedication to eliminating racism and empowering women in the Anchorage community and throughout the state of Alaska, and recognizes April 27th through the 30th, 2017, as Stand Against Racism 2017, passed and approved by the Anchorage Assembly this 25th day of April 2017.
Thanks, Mr. Rivera. Item 9A7, the individual's not here quite yet, so I want to come back and pick that one up as soon as she gets here.
Mr. Trainee,
Yes, ma'am.
can I change the order of the day to bring up item 9A7 after the dinner break, maybe?
If you would, please.
Yeah.
Appreciate that, ma'am. Ask unanimous, say no objection. We'll bring that up after dinner break. Next item in front is item 9B1, Resolution Air 2017-143, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly stating its protest regarding the new restaurant eating place liquor license number 5549 for the Bed and Brew LLC, new businesses Bed and Brew, with restaurant designation permit located at 1450 East Tudor Road, Anchorage, Alaska, and authorizing the municipal clerk to take certain action. Mr. Rivera, I need a motion to approve that, sir.
Move to approve.
Is there a second? Second. We need a second. Okay. Mr. Rivera.
I would like to move to amend this item to add laid on the table item 9B1A as an AIM.
Is there a second? Second. I know, but we did it anyway. Felix, do you want to go over what that is?
Sure. So basically this AIM emphasizes the administrative approval process, and if beer and wine ever changes at this facility to a full bar, that it will go back to a full public hearing.
It's the same way we handled McGinty's a few weeks ago. New members weren't here at that time. We dealt with McGinty's. They'd had a beer and wine for years, and then they wanted to go full dispensary. So we did the same process for them. So it sets a pattern for what we do with this one. Mr. Dunbar, sir.
Yeah, Mr. Trini, I just want to make sure that we sort of know what we're voting on here, and you have expressed to me that this doesn't actually impose a new legal requirement on their license. That's correct?
The purpose of this is just to let the body know, because we've got new members, the process when we have something changed from beer and wine to full dispensary. So that's all it does.
Is there someone here representing the party that maybe would like to speak?
The attorney, number one and number two. There, I get your name wrong, sorry, but the husband and wife are down here.
Jenna, would you like to come to the microphone? Have you had a chance to review this item?
I just got it, and I've been reviewing it throughout our this last meeting, and it looks like what the law requires, anyways. Now that I've had a chance to review it, I had a little panic attack when I first saw it, but now that I've reviewed it, it looks exactly what the law already requires.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else, sir?
No, that's all, Mr. Trini. Thank you.
Any other comments from assembly members? If not, please vote. The item is approved unanimously.
Good.
So it's fine. We have 9B3 next. Our next item is 9B3 on the addendum agenda. It's Resolution AR 2017-162, resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly authorizing the administration to begin collective bargaining negotiations with the International Association of Firefighters, Local 1264, IAFF.
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any comments from assembly members? Please vote on this, please. The item is approved. Thank you, Mr. Bowski. Let's see the next one, Barbara. 9C4? Yeah, there it is. Mr. Dyson, item on page 3, item 9C4, same memorandum, AM 317-2017, recommendation award to Mass Excavation Incorporated for the Yosemite Drive upgrade project for the Municipality of Anchorage, Alaska Project Management and Engineering Department. The total is $3,532,000. Let's see. $3,532,007.20. Mr. Dyson.
Move to approve.
Second.
Mr. Dyson.
Yeah, thank you. This is a pretty big issue and part of our community.
Mr. Dyson, could you make sure you're speaking in the microphone, sir?
This is a fairly big issue in our community, and the administration has been very helpful, particularly Jerry Hansen, answering my questions, getting me the documents and so on. And I'm impressed with the work the municipality has done, and it will solve many of the problems in the area and doesn't preclude any future other solutions. And so I move to approval.
Thank you. Other comments from assembly members? Not seeing any. Please vote. This will approve this item. Who's not here? That was unanimous. I should complete our consent agenda. 96, who pulled that one? Okay. Next item, refresh item 96, the same memorandum, AM 319, 2017.
Move to approve.
Okay. Who seconded it?
Second.
Okay. Chris?
Is Miss Forster here? Oh, sorry. Thank you. Is Miss Forster here? Nope. Miss Forster's not here. Well, my simple comment to her will be when I track her down that she's taken over for Kayla Epstein. Kayla was an amazing figure that when I first got started in community service in this town, it was to get a dog park in my neighborhood, and Kayla was right there with me. So my path kind of led me through the Animal Care and Control Board, and I was going to challenge her to consider helping to motivate the contractor who runs Animal Care and Control to operate a monthly ticketing patrol, just a couple hours a month in the dog parks to promote good dog ownership in the community. So, but I'll be having that talk with her.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Any other comments? Ms. Dombrowski, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I look forward to, when we look at people who step up for public service, their backgrounds are diverse, their skill sets are diverse, and it's exciting to see people want to get involved in their community. So congratulations to Ms. Forster on her appointment. As to Mr. Constant's request, please keep the ticketing agents in the Anchorage Bowl. You don't have to come to Eagle River.
That's the first place you go.
I think that's cute, Amy. That's nice. I know that they've got another issue coming in for them. I'm told they're going to come up with a mushing license.
No.
Oh, yes.
No.
Because what they're going to do is try to separate those that have a fancier's license from those that have a full-blown kennel license. So we'll see, mushing license. So we'll see how that comes. That'll be coming in front of the Assembly, and I'm sure we'll pack the chamber.
I will let the Chugiak dog mushers know.
Thank you, ma'am. Please vote on this one. That is unanimous. Next item in front, item 98, is same memorandum, AM 321-2017, 2017 Mayor's Community Grant to Anchorage Economic Development Corporation.
Move to approve.
Moved and seconded, Ms. Dombrowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To the administration, would it be possible for the administration to provide the Assembly with a 2017 work plan?
Mr. Chairman, Assemblyman Dombrowski, work plan for AEDC or work plan for the grant program?
Well, I would like to know, since we're giving the money to AEDC, it says the goals set forth in the 2017 work plan, so the administration's AM doesn't specify which one, but I want to see how you're going to be measuring and what those goals are.
Thank you. Yes, we can provide that.
Thank you.
Any other comments from Assembly members? Seeing nobody, please vote on this item. We've got one. Who hasn't voted? Mr. Dyson, sir, we need your vote. Thank you, sir. That is unanimous. That completes our consent agenda. We'll now take a break for a regular scheduled dinner break, and there is nobody that's here, persons to be heard, so we'll be back probably in about 15 to 20 minutes. Set it for 20 minutes, Madam Clerk.
Way up there?
14K first.
Okay,
Okay.
so we were supposed to take up Julia's, we're just going to move on.
We're gonna
and not
move
do
on.
that. Okay.
Call this meeting back to order. Mr. Dunbar?
I move to change the order of the day to take up the first quarter budget items, 14K, 14L, 14M, and 14N, and any substitute versions before 14A.
Is there a second? Ask unanimous. Seeing no objection, we change the order of the day.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, sir.
do we still have the resolution before us? It was before 14A.
It's not here yet.
So we need to move to postpone it, or?
We're just going to delay it.
Okay.
Pick it up when she gets here.
Okay.
Okay, we're now down to the first item is resolution. Let's see, let me get it correct. Okay. We're now down to resolution AR 2017-139 and 139S, a resolution of the municipality of Anchorage, Alaska, revising and appropriating funds for the 2017 general government operating budget for the municipality of Anchorage, Alaska. Public hearing is now open. Anybody wishing to testify, please come forward, state your name clearly, spell your last name, and tell us what part of town you live in. You'll have 3 minutes. Welcome to the meeting.
Good evening. My name is Britta Hamre, H-A-M-R-E. I'm a member of the Public Transportation Advisory Board, and I live in the Midtown District. So the Public Transportation Advisory Board issued a resolution to the Assembly, and I truly hope you all have read it. I'm here to testify about the line budget item of reducing the overall budget for public transportation by $375,000. As you all are probably already aware, the staff of the People Mover and the Public Transportation Advisory Board conducted a real thorough Anchorage Talks Transit in preparation for unveiling of a new public transportation plan for the People Mover that we hope to unveil starting this spring with getting public education and then have the transfer over in the fall. Any reduction to the overall budget is going to hinder the ability for the People Mover to become an effective and an efficient public transportation system for both current and future users of the People Mover. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from Assembly members? If you've got a question, please push the button. It says request to speak, and I'll recognize you. Doesn't appear. Oh, there we go. Mr. Rivera would like to talk to you, ma'am. Felix?
Yes, and perhaps this is a better question for Mr. Hassan, who I see is in the audience, but how will this affect implementation of the new system in October?
I will refer the details on that question to staff. However, the assumption that we communicated to the public and as well with the whole planning process with the administration was that there was going to be no reduction to the overall public transportation budget. We know that this plan is going to take time to prove its effectiveness, and any reduction in budget is going to hinder the ability for it to prove itself.
Anything else, sir? Lance, your light's on. Mr. Wilbur?
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. If I could, the reduction that has been brought up is we have contract services for the van pool program, and the new contractor that we have for the van pool program, the cost of that is less than we had originally budgeted. That is the purpose of the reduction.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. Anybody else wish to testify, please come forward. Anyone at all? Hello, Mr. McGrath. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, sir. And you?
Fine.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Mayor, members of the Anchorage Assembly, thank you for this opportunity to testify on the 2017 revised MOA general government budget. I'd also like to thank Mr. Wilbur and his office, who produced a really well laid out and understandable document that details the changes and additions to the 2017 budget. There's an addition of $160,000 for contract and lease payments for the Anchorage Museum and the Performing Arts Center. There is also a decrease in the revenue from the Sullivan Arena in the amount of $70,000. These three area changes are ones that I think are a significant problem for Anchorage. These buildings are worth approximately $400 million. You would think with such a capital investment, they should be able to make money for the city rather than cost money to the city budget. I realize that there are many municipal employees that are involved in these institutions in formulating the contracts and detailing performance. Possibly we're using the wrong people to provide oversight or the wrong people to negotiate contracts. In the case of the Sullivan Arena, a large state grant was received recently to renovate the building primarily for the Anchorage Aces. That business is no longer. There should have been a contract that required performance before such a large amount of money was spent for the benefit of one organization. If the Sullivan Arena, the Performing Arts Center, and the Anchorage Museum requires taxpayer assistance to survive, then maybe there should be a community discussion to determine if it is in our best interest to continue subsidizing them. This at a time when we're putting off a fire academy. The basic reason for municipal government is police, fire, and basic infrastructure. Should we be budgeting for nice to have when we can't cover the basics? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. There don't appear to be any questions. Thank you, Mr. McGrath. Anybody else wish to testify, please come forward. Anyone at all? Hearing and saying no on public testimony is closed. What's the wish of the body? We'll need a motion to approve on the S version of 2017-139S.
Move to approve.
Is there a second? Moved and seconded for approval. Ms. Dombrowski, ma'am.
Mr. Chair, I move amendment number 1. It is a 1.5% decrease in direct operational costs for a total of $1,663,894.61.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Ms. Dombrowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This would be a 1.5% operational decrease in the following offices: Assembly, CFO, Development Services, Economic and Community Development, Equal Rights Commission, Finance, Health and Human Services, Internal Audit, Library, OMB, Mayor, Muni Manager, Planning, Public Works Administration, Purchasing, and Parks and Rec. And it will be a direct taxpayer relief.
Anything else, ma'am? Okay. Mr. Croft on amendment number 1 for Ms. Dombrowski, sir.
Yeah, I've spoken before about not liking the across-the-board approach to budget cutting. If we're going to make reductions to the budget, I think we ought to confront the consequences that they'll have. So saying we're going to reduce this number of bus schedules, or we're going to directly affect the library by closing it down on certain days. Public knows what it's getting. We couldn't do this in our personal or professional lives. I couldn't decide to pay 98.5% of filling up my tank. I have about $3,000 rent on business. I couldn't just reduce it by $45 because I wanted to tighten my belt generally. If I was going to do that, I need to identify an area of expenditure and not do it anymore, and or of course go out and get another job, bring in money some other way. And so I think that should apply on the budget as well, that we ought to identify what we're not going to do anymore or how we're going to raise additional revenue from some other source. And it's not really an across the board, right? It takes about of our roughly $500 million budget and says $400 million of it is held harmless. So it just really takes a little over $100 million and applies that reduction to it. But it's primarily the way it's done. If we want to reduce that for property tax relief or for some other governmental purpose, we should identify what it is.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Dombrowski, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think by channeling Mr. Starr, I'm going to pontificate for a moment and educate some Assembly members on how the budgeting process works. The Assembly doesn't appropriate down to the paper clip. We appropriate by department. And I've gone through this process multiple times, and under this administration, I offered 40 different amendments that were specific cuts to travel budgets, to supply budgets and everything. And every single one of those reductions, even a $300 reduction, was rejected, completely rejected. And so I was told, don't give us specifics. We would actually prefer to have by department so we can allocate where it goes in the department for those cuts. So I came back last year and I did that. And again, every single amendment was rejected. So I am going through and going on the advice of what I was told previously, which is don't give us specific cuts. Instead, give us by department, because that's how the Assembly allocates money. If we want to allocate the money down to the paperclip, we have to change how we do our budgeting. I prefer to do it that way, frankly. I would prefer to do it by PCN, by specific supply, specifics. I want to limit their contracting ability. I want to limit those P cards. I would love to do it that way. It's simply not how we do it. So again, this is a direct reflection of the commentary I got in the last 2 budget cycles from this administration. So I'm trying to tailor my amendments specifically to those requests. That's why it is. And what you'll notice in this amendment is there are certain, what I believe are essential services that are not touched. You'll notice in this list, there's no police department, maintenance and operations, fire department, many of those departments that do actual things that I believe are essential to the duty of the municipality, like police, fire, infrastructure, are held harmless in this budget. The other thing you'll notice is some departments that have already taken substantial cuts in the proposed first quarter revisions were also either held harmless or the amount taken in addition was to equal that 1.5%. I think Mr. McGrath makes an excellent point. I mean, the fact of the matter is, and you'll see it in my second amendment, we can't even hold a fire academy to manage attrition. Yet we're funding multiple things, increasing budgets, or doing non-essential expenditures. The fact of the matter is the fire department's budget, basically they blew their budget last year. Let's just be honest. But it came down to staffing. So we're going to compound that and make it worse because now we're not even managing attrition through a fire academy. And what was the main driving cause last year in their budget being overran? It was inadequate staffing and overtime. So why are we doing the same thing over and over again? So again, I'm not going to pontificate too long on this, but if we're going to talk about how we budget and you don't want across the board cuts, well then let's budget a little differently. But that's not currently how the municipality does it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Dunbar, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I almost called you Madam Chair. Force of habit.
That's all right. When I was chairman last time, they called Ellie Mr. Chair, so let's just get this done.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I guess I have two things here. So the first is I know what Ms. Domboski is saying about things that are seen to be the essential functions of the city and things that aren't. But there are things on this list even that I would challenge are not. So things like purchasing, Office of Management and Budget, finance, those are the things that allow the rest of the city to function. And so they don't directly interact with the public, but they are necessary if you want to do things like have a well-functioning police department or fire department or anything else. The other question, so we're getting this a little bit late in the game, and so I haven't been able to ask questions about this amendment to the administration. But if there's anyone that's willing to talk to, what would this look like? What would you do? Mr. Harris, I'm looking at you because your department, finance, has the largest cut here. Mr. Abbott, if you maybe would be willing to speak to what you would do with the $202,000 cut. Can you give me and my colleagues sort of a sense of what this might do? And if it's too late in the game to do that, I understand. But Mr. Harris, would you like to take a stab at that?
Thank you. Thank you. Through the chair, Mr. Dunbar. At this stage, cuts like this are going to result in elimination of positions. We're a fairly thinly staffed organization, so I think as you go back, I might defer to Mr. Wilbur. He might have a better sense of exactly how that kind of cut would be absorbed.
Through the chair, I think Mr. Harris is actually correct. Many departments over the years have scrubbed their budgets, and the reductions such as these are going to either eliminate services, programs, and personnel.
May I ask
Mr.
a
Dunbar,
follow-up?
continue.
And again, this is, I understand you haven't had the time to really go through this, but you say maybe it could lead to the elimination of services or elimination of positions. Can you give us a sense of what those positions or services are?
Through the chair, Mr. Dunbar, I mean, it would depend on how the departments wanted to manage, because many of these departments have multiple services and programs that they do. Mr. Harris's, for example, I mean, he has payroll, he has his controller's office, key role in SAP, the CAFR, everything as it relates to things that go on in finance. So every department would be different, so I couldn't be specific. And if we were to do something like this, I would reach out to the department heads and execs and get their recommendations, and at this point I have none.
Thank you, Mr. Wilbur. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Dunbar. Mr. Wilson, sir?
I guess while Lance is on the deck there, you know, we got just, I guess as you saw revenues not coming in like they were expected last year, departments started cutting, and we saw that I think you cut broadly across government about 1.5%. To get down, I think we were we spent about $8.5 million less. I think that's about right than expected, but our revenues were about 11, so we're off a little bit. But so you've gone through this recently, has basically cut 1.5% somewhere, probably some places more than others. But did things work okay? Could you do it again?
Through the chair, Mr. Weddleton, the reason that we made those adjustments is that, as you suggested, most of the way through the year, we thought that revenues were not going to be as we had budgeted, so we then directed departments to reduce their spending, and that's exactly what they did. In the past, previous budget to that, the administration asked departments to actually save more, and they did, and there was losses in people and a little bit modifications in programs. So yes, and the whole purpose of the 1Q, or first quarter budget revisions, is to go back and revise and review our forecasts of our revenues, which we've done. We've presented those to you, and any other program adjustments that we would want to make, and those are all reflected in this document.
Mr. Wilton, anything else, sir? Any other comments from Assembly members? Not seeing any, we're going to vote on Ms. Tabowski's amendment number 1. Please vote. That fails 2-9. Ms. Tabowski, ma'am?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move amendment number 2. It is a neutral amendment. It would move $300,000 from the municipal manager's office to the fire department.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Ms. Tabowski, ma'am?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This amendment will reallocate $300,000 for the proposed stormwater study to the immediate need for a fall fire academy to maintain current AFD staffing and to account for 2017 AFD attrition numbers. Mr. Chair, as you know, I'm passionate about public safety, and I think we should fund that adequately above all else. And I do not believe I've seen a positive, let's say, Plan B, when Prop 2 failed, to deal with this. And as I spoke in the last amendment, one thing we know the fire department has consistently struggled with is their staffing numbers. It is absolutely asinine to allow this to go forward without trying to positively impact and allow for a fire academy. Now, I will tell you, $300,000 will not get you all the way there. It depends how fast you get it, but it gives the fire chief the opportunity to have a launching pad to determine how's the best way he can account for those 12 attrition numbers that they're forecasting for 2017. For those members who weren't here last year, the fire department's budget was, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, Chief, was it about $1.2 million over last year? And they came and they gave us a great presentation, and it came down to staffing. It came down to staffing. That was the big part of the reason. So their staffing models literally were off, and so the overtime was incurred. And to me, this is a fundamental priority. What's more important, a stormwater study or the fire department? To me, I say the fire department. This is revenue neutral. It's not going to cost any more money, but this will mandate if we're actually going to have a fire academy, that the administration makes this a priority, they're still going to have to do their legwork to come up with the remaining balance. If they do the fire academy in September, you're looking at potentially about $1 million. If they push it off to November, December timeframe, you're looking at substantially less, because remember, a big part of the fire academy is the actual people for the rest of the year. If the fire chief elects to choose to split this over 2 years, you could potentially fund with this portion in 2017, and in the 2018 budget, we could account for the other half if the academy is spread over December, January. That's still not going to solve your overtime and your staffing issue, but at least we won't start next year down 24 instead of down 12. So to me, this is a fundamental question, is where does the Assembly put their priority? Does the Assembly put their priority in making sure that we keep public safety whole in this budget season? Or does the Assembly put the priority into a stormwater study? It's just a question. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, man. You definitely got everybody's attention. My board's lit up. Mr. Whittleton, sir.
Well, I just want to, Mr. Dombowski, you had sent around this afternoon kind of breakdown on the costs of the academies, and I got it, I read it, I don't remember the numbers, but what was the typical cost for an academy of 17 or so?
I have it. Wait a minute. Where did I put it, Mr. Wilbur? I lost it already. Now, one of the things, Mr. Weddleton, you're going to have to understand is in the academy in 2014 was a lateral academy of paramedics only. Mm-hmm. Paramedics typically run 20% more than an average firefighter. So the average cost of these different academies range between $642,000 and $1.3 million. And remember, a lot of that has to do with when you do them in the year. If you do them in the beginning of the year, it's going to be more towards the 1.3. If you do them towards the end of the year, it's going to be on the lower end. The other thing, I'll tell you is the fire department used to have a much longer academy, and now they're shortening it to 6 weeks. So I don't know if that weighs into your factoring of the cost of the actual academy, but I would suspect it would make an impact, because when they do an academy, they TDY a whole bunch of guys that are on duty or off duty, and they get paid overtime in order to teach. So obviously that has an impact, not only the length of the academy, but where it's held during the year.
Mr. Wilton?
Well, just so now, is this academy you'd envision, is that for EMTs or for firefighters?
Same thing. A firefighter is an EMT. So in order to be a firefighter, you have to be an EMT1 in the municipality of Anchorage.
Okay.
There's a difference between firefighters and paramedics.
Okay, well, what you sent out seemed to have two different categories. And
That's what I was given from OMB, actually. So, again, they put the actual costs, Academies 2013, Academies 2014, 15, and 16. But the reason I highlighted to you 2014 is because that's a different type of academy. It's a lateral paramedic academy.
Okay. And so thank you. And then if I continue, just, Go
ahead, sir.
Storm drain study is, were that instituted, the expectation is it would cut the cost of development in Anchorage substantially and would be a huge cost savings. So it's looks like an expense today, but it really starts something I think we all know we need. I know in the hillside drainage has been a big issue, and we've been working on that. But citywide, there's constraints on development because we don't have good storm drain systems. So it's a small investment now to point a direction to go to save lots of money later. And that's pretty fundamental to the role of government.
Oh, I thought that was a question for me. I would agree with you. It's important. I would also agree with you. That's the exact same argument for the fire academy. It's an investment now that will save us money long term, and it's a public safety.
That's all, Mr. Wilton?
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Constant, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
So, on the amendment.
On the amendment. I really support the idea of storm drain study and utility. I live in a neighborhood, in fact, the block that I live on and 10 blocks to the south of me, the water drainage pipes, you can find actual cobbled wood pipes that are pre-statehood and at a threat for crumbling at any time in the near future. There's no systemic plan. There are properties that flood year in and year out that are costing the city, costing residents every single year. And we're dealing with it in a willy-nilly approach. Here and there where there's a problem, put out the fire. And so to echo Mr. Weddleton, the investment in the short run on a vision for the long run that can take care of some of the enduring problems that we've got in our city will make a big difference. And I just would note that I voted one of my first votes on this body for item 9C4, which is $3.5 million for stormwater upgrades for Yosemite Road. And I spend a lot of time on Yosemite Road. It's a connection to a neighborhood. I spend a lot of time, and I think it's a valid and important investment to make. And I think that we need to make those investments, and that I support this.
Thank you, Mr. Constant.
Excuse me, I support the funding. I don't support the amendment.
Any other comments from Assembly members on the amendment in front of us? Not seeing anybody, please vote. The vote was 9-2 against that. Did not. Any other amendments? Then we're back on the main motion. If you wish to discuss that, please. Ms. Dombrowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's not going to be a shocker to anybody that I'm not going to vote for this. And I'm not going to vote for it for a number of reasons. I've watched this body over the past year consistently vote to give contract increases, some of them substantial. 32 police and fire supervisors each received between $20,000 and $30,000 raises instantaneously last year, to the tune of $840,000 annually. Yet we can't find the money to fund a fire academy. It's unconscionable. You know, and when we get to the point when we say last year, the year before, when some of us were making amendments to supply budgets that would not have incurred any additional cost, travel budgets for the fire department went up $80,000 a couple years ago. Nobody wanted to cut those specific cuts. You know, when we have groupthink and we don't have independence, the problem becomes we'll find ourselves in a situation where we're going to be facing rolling closures again. We're going to be facing busted budgets because of overtime. We're going to have employee burnout, which will increase our attrition rates. I'm telling you, these paramedics are worked to the bone. I've watched it. The firemen are no different, especially when we create simple rules like, oh, you have to be a senior captain in order to do the same job and tour trade with them. You're putting such a tight stranglehold in some of these contracts, you don't understand the implications of what it means for the employees doing the job. And I'm telling you, high burnout rates and high overtime rates. That's what you're going to face. So I'm going to vote no with a clear conscience. I tried my level best to give taxpayers some relief in this budget. It's absolutely astonishing to me. In a $500 million budget, you can't find a 1% cut. You can't cut $300 from a supply budget. You can't find $600,000, $300,000, whatever it is, for a fire academy. It's astonishing to me. It's about priorities. And if the Assembly isn't going to lead, you're going to follow, and you're going to end up playing catch-up when the rubber meets the road, because that day will come. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other comments from Assembly members prior to voting on the budget? Seeing no one, please vote. The budget is approved 10-1. Next item in front of us.
Mr. Chair?
Sir?
Yeah. I'd like to change my vote. I was too slow.
Okay. Madam Clerk, would you let the vote reflect 9-2? Mr. Dyson, tactical punching error.
Can we please do a motion to reconsider that?
Okay.
Mr. Chair, move for immediate reconsideration.
Second.
We'll move for reconsideration. Just wait until it comes up.
I actually saw it.
And what this will do, this will allow Mr. Dyson to re-vote on it the correct way he wanted to. So what you want to do is vote yes on this to give a member of the body the opportunity to correct his vote. Okay, that was approved. No, we need a motion. I need another motion again to.
Second.
Okay. Good. Let's vote. This is voting on the budget. That budget was approved 9-2. We're now down to item 14L, Ordinance AO 2017-69, an ordinance setting the rates of tax levy, approving the amount of municipal property tax, levying taxes for all service areas of the municipality of Anchorage. Public hearing on this item is now open. Anybody wishing to testify, please come forward. State your name clearly for the record. Spell your last name. Tell us what part of town you live in. And this is also including the S version of the document, 2017-69S. Anybody like to testify, please come forward. Anyone at all? Hearing and saying no one, public testimony is closed. What's the wish of the body? Moved and seconded. Discussion from assembly members.
Simple math.
Doesn't appear to be any. Please vote. You're voting on the S version of 2017-69S. Mr. Dyson, sir? That was approved 9-2. Next one in front of us is item 14M, Ordinance AO 2017-72, an ordinance revising and appropriating funds for the 2017 municipal utility/enterprise activities operating and capital budgets. Municipal Light and Power, ML&P, Anchorage Water and Wastewater Utility, AWW, reimbursable projects, ML&P, BRU gas field, ML&P contribution plant, and revising and approving the 2017-2022 municipal utilities enterprise activities capital improvement program. Public hearing this item is now open. Anybody wishing to testify, please come forward. State your name clearly for the record. Spell your last name. Tell us what part of town you live in. And it's also the S version of this. There's a 2017 S2. Hearing and saying no, and public testimony is closed. What's the wish of the body?
Move to approve. Second.
You moving the S version, sir?
Yes.
Thank you. Comments from assembly members? Mr. Wilton, sir.
Just so briefly, there's just some number changes here. What caused this?
What, sir?
This is basically just some numbers were revised. What
Lance?
was the cause?
Through the chair, Mr. Weddleton, you're exactly correct. We made some adjustments to the intergovernmental charges, reducing those costs to the utilities. They were very minor.
Oh, it's just IGCs?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Any other comments from assembly members? If not, please vote. You're voting on 72S in front of us. That was unanimous. Let's see. Next one in front of us is item 14N. It's ordinance AO 2017-70, an ordinance setting the tax rate levy, approving the amount of municipal property tax and levying taxes for the Anchorage School District for tax year 2017. Office of Management and Budget. Public hearing on this item is now open. Anybody wish to testify, please come forward. State your name clearly for the record. Spell your last name and tell us what part of town you live in. Anyone at all? Hearing and saying no, and public testimony is closed. What's the wish of the body?
Second.
Moved and seconded for approval. Comments from assembly members? Let me make sure we don't have an S version on that. I didn't see one. I don't think we have an S version on that. Okay. Ms. Nabowski, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I feel a bit nostalgic. I channeled Mr. Starr earlier. I have to channel Mr. Flynn today. He likes to welcome the new members of the body and tell them your first action today is raising taxes on every taxpayer in the municipality of Anchorage, and this is one more opportunity to do so. So, welcome to the crew.
And since you were channeling him, we're also raising his taxes. Mr. Dunbar, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Traney. And I remember a year ago when I was in exactly that position, and it's the first thing we ask you to do, and it's not easy, and it's a tremendous responsibility. But the fact is we are helping the city to function, and we are providing vital services. In this case, we're helping our schools. And I know people in my community value schools above almost everything else. So it's, you know, Mr. Flynn was always a bit sardonic about it, you know, and he saw it as a kind of a punishment. But it's also, it's important. You're doing important work. So thank you for being here. And yeah, that's all I have to say.
Mr. Dombrowski, are your sandals on since you're channeling him?
No, I have closed-toed shoes.
Okay. Just thought I'd check. Mr. Steele, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I remember on the TV just last night or this morning, the superintendent begging the state to adequately fund education and outlining some of the damage that's going to be done if they don't or if they approve the cuts. Education is critical, and we need to do all we can to help. And if the state does not do their duty, I hope we will be able to reconsider and see if we can't find a way to help education. It's critical. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments from the members before we vote? Last comment is I attended the swearing in last night of the new school board members. It was really nice to see the old members leave, new members get sworn in. So we've got some upcoming meetings with the school district. I think we've got a quarter budget revision coming up with them when we meet and talk about issues. When's that next one? Do you know, Barbara?
It'll be in June.
June. Okay, that's close enough. I'm sure we'll have lots to talk about that. Maybe we'll know what the state's going to do. Anyway, please vote. The item's approved unanimously, 11-0. Good. She's here. Let's go back and address item 9A7. We agreed to take it up later in the meeting. We'll deal with that one. It's on 9A7. It's AR 2017-141. A resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly recognizing and honoring Julia Tucker, Assembly Council, for 12 years of service to the Anchorage Assembly. I need a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ask unanimous. That is approved by the body. Julia, come on down.
A resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly recognizing and honoring Julia Tucker, Assembly Council, for 12 years of service to the Anchorage Assembly. Whereas Julia Tucker, native of Fairfax County, Virginia, received a Bachelor of Arts degree from the University of Wisconsin, earned her Juris Doctorate from Seattle University School of Law, and has been a licensed attorney for 39 years, admitted to the Alaska Bar Association in 1978. Whereas Ms. Tucker has lived in Alaska since 1977 and brought them to the municipality of Anchorage an eclectic legal and business background anchored in pipeline regulatory compliance, government contract compliance, criminal law enforcement in remote areas of Bush, Alaska, and prior ownership of a small 32-room hotel business in Anchorage. Whereas Ms. Tucker accepted appointment as Assembly Counsel with the Municipality of Anchorage in 2005 and has since worked directly for the Anchorage Assembly, frequently offering tea to her Assembly visitors. Whereas Ms. Tucker has made significant mark on the municipal code, drafting and authored too many sections of code to mention, but among several notable achievements as Assembly Counsel, Ms. Tucker works on Title 10 tow code rewrite, Title 2 rewrites, among others. Whereas one of Ms. Tucker's most significant legislative accomplishments is the 2007 rewrite of the Anchorage Municipal Code of Ethics with Assemblymember Ken Stout. 10 years later, in 2017, the Board of Ethics noted that Julia took delight in working with the board to consider how the 2007 code bore fruit. And with her years of experience in interpreting the 2007 Code of Ethics, served as a valuable consultant to drafting of the 2017 Code of Ethics approved by the Assembly this past February. And whereas Ms. Tucker will be remembered for her oft-charming comments and quips, including stir to the middle, pull every string to the end, Blade Runner, what you don't know that you don't know is larger than what you know, by operation of law, and vis-a-vis, among others. Now, therefore, the Anchorage Assembly recognizes and honors Julia Tucker for her 12 years of invaluable service to the Anchorage Assembly as Assembly Counsel. passed and approved by the Anchorage Assembly this 25th day of April 2017.
Thank you. I told Mr. Trainee, he asked me to call him Dick, and of course I usually do call him Dick, but I told Mr. Trainee that we'd had a good run here. For those people who think of Dick as the eternal chair, I want to share with you that Dick is the 8th chair that I worked for. That means that I worked for 7 other chairs out of the 10 that I've worked for here. Some of those chairs I worked for more than one term. Some of them came in and out. Some of them, besides those present, have done multiple terms. But it's an honor to stand before you. I've worked on things, and I'm so happy that some of them show up on. In ways even after I've worked on them. They're not always going to be showing up in exactly the same way. As Mr. Weddleton knows, that we propose things to the Assembly members, and so that they have tools to be able to go and take them elsewhere and have them refined. So many of the things that Mr. Weddleton has asked me to work on have come to fruition, but maybe not in the form that was originally envisioned, but I try to give everybody something to work from other than a blank sheet. Because as Barbara may be able to tell you now, having done an entire section of Title II from a blank sheet, from basically a blank sheet of paper and some notes, it's the worst looking at a blank sheet. For those that are here that I have served, Mr. Steele, we worked on the Rustic Goat, now an institution here. And so at the time, that was something with the planning department that predated the code rewrite, and it was really the first mixed-use project for the Turnagain area, and it really changed that situation. If it hadn't been for your leadership and Mr. Hall's leadership and the willingness of Angela Chambers and other people in the planning department, we'd have been further behind on that kind of a project. And Forrest, I haven't done a lot of work for you, but I tell you what, the amendments that you had me draft for you on the taxi code led to some refinements that Dean was able to pick up, and that helps all around when people can collaborate and work on things from one end of the dais up here, to another. And Mr. Peterson, when you came on board, I was really, really heartened by the work that you did for the East Side, along with Mr. Dunbar, work that was picked up in part from some things that we'd done on that Muldoon Park, before you were on the Assembly. So it's really tough to work in my situation where you work really hard on a lot of projects and then they can kind of die and fizzle out. So it's great when they're picked up like that. And Amy, we've worked on a lot of things together, but what I was impressed most by was Amy's revitalization of the committee that you, Mr. Weddleton, now serve on, and her running of the meetings over in the planning department were really, really incredible. So I think that all of the new members here, I know that in the case of Mr. Croft, he has some other ideas to bring about on some code things, and others will be here to finish those off for you. Even though Mr. Trainee, as I said, is the 8th chair that I work for, Mr. Trainee always impressed upon me the importance of the office of the Assembly Council and the work that it did to make sure that everybody had legal service, no matter what side of the issue that they were on, no matter where they stood in terms of partisan politics outside of the office. And Mr. Trainee, for you, you know, the smoking ordinance, the IM ordinance, just many things that have changed the face of Anchorage during your tenure here is something that I'm really happy to have been a part of. And so, one of the very best things is that the Assembly has chosen my former work colleague, Mr. Gates from the Department of Law, to come and be my successor. That is just, you never know when to kind of do a shift, and there are things in my life that I have to take care of now, in addition to the Assembly, so I have to kind of make a tough choice there. But it was a very a good thing on my side that I have such a wonderful successor to take over the office. So thank you very much, all of you.
We have a few comments for you, ma'am. Please don't go anywhere. Mr. Weldon?
Well, I just 2 points on process here. Did we vote on this?
Yes, we did.
There was. Okay, that was the first one. The second one is because when we vote, we only get yes or no. And I have learned from Julia that there are no just yes, no questions. Because I've gone in every time thinking this is a simple yes, no. And I think this quote here about what you don't know that you don't know is larger than what you know is always the truth. And I learned a whole lot that I didn't know. And thank you very much for all that.
Ms. Dembowski, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Julia, I don't even know where to start. Your wisdom, your counsel, your friendship, your depth of knowledge of so many different parts of law. I can't even begin to describe the issues you and I have worked through, whether it was a quasi-judicial proceeding that took a lot of our time. We spent a lot of time together. But when I think back about it, you always challenged me to consider the other side of the issue, no matter what it was. And I think your encouragement to always be a critical thinker, I think Mr. Weddleton hit the nail on the head. When we walked into your office and thought we had a simple idea, you really challenged us to think about all the impacts and all the different ways to think about it and be a critical thinker. And I have to laugh because when I read the comment about you don't know what you don't know, I was keenly aware that there was a lot I didn't know. And so I would always go in with like an open-ended question. And when I came out of it, I was well-versed, well-educated, or I knew exactly where to look to get versed or to get educated. I can unequivocally tell you, now I'm channeling Elvie. I'm going to start crying. I can unequivocally tell you that I am a better person just for knowing you. So I will miss you dearly.
Mr. Dunbar, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Julia. It's really been a great year, and I really appreciate the work we've been able to do together. I'm just curious if you want to share with us a little bit about what you're doing next and where you're going.
Sure. I'm, as people who know me may have heard me say, I believe that I've been living in my retirement community since 1977. So in terms of a permanent, I've just been working while I was doing that, and I may work some more, but I have some significant family situations to take care of, and it just wasn't working for me to be commuting back and forth to the East Coast to get those done. And so I'm going to be taking some time off. I'm going to miss part of my favorite month in Anchorage, the month of May, taking care of some of those things, and then I'll be back, and I have a lot of ideas. I came to this job because I realized that in early 2005, I realized that just like with one other job that I had taken, that I had lived here all this time and I really didn't understand much about municipal politics. And I certainly didn't understand anything about the work that the people who work for the city as public servants do for the city. And I figured that if I didn't start paying attention to that, then I couldn't complain later if things weren't going well. And so one of the other things besides the appointment of Dean Gates as Assembly Counsel that I'm really tickled about is that it seems to me that you have the right set of people here to address the challenges that are coming up. And there aren't, you know, I've never doubted the commitment of any of the Assembly people that I have worked for, but it hasn't always been an exact match between what was going on and the ability of the body to address it full strength in a way that I could be, you know, on a personal level as comfortable with as I am now. And so I think that it's, you know, I miss not being able to share in a way other than as Ms. Domboski has talked about my challenges with different things and things that I see here. So I hope to stay active in things that are happening with the municipality as soon as I can, just not as a paid counsel to the Assembly or anybody.
Maybe you could be up here someday.
No, I think that I I am best used. That my skills are best used in counseling people who are up there, whether it be legal counsel or just doing work for them, and I think that's a good match for me. You guys you men and women take on huge responsibilities, and I will ever be impressed and grateful to you as a member of this community that you're willing to take them on and bring that kind of enthusiasm and rigor to some of the really hard things that we do here. At this time in my life, I have enough drama in my personal life that I can't be looking over my shoulder for more, but you know, I'll try and help however I can as things straighten out.
We have a couple more comments, ma'am. Mr. Steele, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Julia, you're going to be missed tremendously. I'm not even sure that you understand how important you are to this process or were to this process. You talked about the rusted goat. Yeah, we went in there eyes wide open, all kinds of optimism, and right out of the bag, the first issue was parking. And I have to give Mr. Vacatus a lot of credit in terms of the parking solution that we came up with. But the rusted goat has proved to be extremely popular and a good match for where it was in the community. The parking was an issue, however. But your skills are incredibly valuable to us. We come in all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed thinking we know which way the rabbits are running, and come to find out, yeah, we knew which way they were running, but we don't know the mechanism by which to get there. And you were extremely helpful in that process. You slowed us down. You talked through the issues, and then had the skills to put things together for us to make it happen. You will be missed, and Dean will be worked extremely hard. But thank you for your service, and I hope to see you back.
Oh, you're welcome.
Mr. Constant, sir.
Thank you, Julia. The challenge you made to me, and we've been working together now for a handful of years, just from grassroots community work, and I'm probably one of the few people that sat in our office as a member of the public and said, what do I do here? And got really great answers, feedback, and support. The challenge Julie gave to me, that I give to everybody here, is that every single one of us has an important role to play, that every single one of us represents our constituency, and that we have a duty to figure out how to work well together. Despite any kind of fundamental differences in perception and background, that together we will do this, the work of the city. And so I heard you loud and clear, and I'm going to embrace that, and it's kind of a product of why I'm sitting next to who I'm sitting next to. because I want to sit next to people who are going to challenge my thinking. And to you, I give many thanks for that.
Well, you're welcome. And as members of the Assembly, and I'm sure many members of the public realize, it's Mr. Constant's work on the neighborhood responsibility plan that now shows up in code. And that was something that he worked on as a community council person with other members of the Assembly, including Ms. Domboski. So we had I think, a very good working situation there, and I hope to see that get even better while you were both on the Assembly.
So one last note is I don't see your role diminishing. I have plans for you. So.
Julia, there are no other comments. I want to thank you so much for working with this. I remember when we hired you a long time ago. It's 12 years. That's longer than most Assembly members have been on the body, ma'am. You've been here that long. I asked you to do one last thing before you left. Is that ordinance done yet? My fireworks ordinance to reintroduce?
Oh, yes, that's right. That's
December?
That's
I am
right.
going forward with that again.
That's right. That's right. I didn't know if I was to mention fireworks.
Absolutely. I never give up on anything. You should know that by now.
Yes,
Look
I
how
do.
long
I
it took
do.
me to get rid of I am.
You
I
got
had to
it,
get rid of that
Mr. Traherne.
twice to get it killed permanently. But thank you, Julia. You told us where there are holes so we could avoid them or run into them. But at least you told us where the holes were, and I appreciate that. It's been great work with you. Take care of your family now, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're now down on the agenda to item 14A. We're getting back to where we started at because we reordered the Assembly. So we're on item 14A, Resolution AR 2017-132, resolution of the municipality of Anchorage appropriating an amount not to exceed $285,824,000. Let's say $824,017 from the State of Alaska Department of Transportation Public Facilities, the State Direct Federal Pass-Through Grants Fund 231 for the Air Quality Public and Business Awareness Education Campaign in the Department of Health and Human Services. Public hearing on this item is now open. Anybody wish to testify, please come forward. State your name clearly for the record. Spell your last name and tell us what part of town you live in. Anyone at all? Hearing and seeing none, public testimony is closed. What's the wish of the body?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion from Assembly members? If not, please vote. Items approved, 11-0. Next item in front of us is item 14B, Resolution AR 2017-133, a resolution of the municipality of Anchorage appropriating $1,093,692.06 of the Dubin Road project land sale proceeds to the Anchorage Roads and Drainage Service Area Capital Improvements Project Funds, Project Management and Engineering Department for the Dubin Road project. Public hearing on this item is now open. Anybody wishing to testify, please come forward. State your name clearly for the record. Spell your last name. Tell us what part of town you live in. Anyone at all? Hearing and seeing none, public testimony is closed. What's the wish of the body?
Second.
Approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion from Assembly members. Doesn't appear to be any. Please vote. Mr. Conti, you need to vote, sir. Thank you. Voting is unanimous. Thank you. Just to let the new members know, our clerk has a screen that tells her if he voted or not. So that's the reason every now and then I say we need to have your vote is just because we need to have everybody's vote tallied. And Barbara tells me every now and then.
Quick question.
Yes.
I was just looking, where is Dubin Road? I see Dubin Avenue on my map.
It's in beautiful East Anchorage.
All right, thank you.
Beautiful East Anchorage?
Beautiful East Anchorage.
You know what, my map says Dubin Avenue. Thanks.
Okay, next item in front of us, item 14C, resolution AR 2017-134, resolution of the municipality of Anchorage appropriating $270,000 from the Alaska Mental Health Trust Authority, buy-in through the Alaska Mental Health Trust Land Office as a redistricted restricted contribution to the Chugach Birchwood Eagle River Road Service Area Capital Improvement Projects, CIP Fund 419, for the additional northbound lane along Yosemite Drive as related to the Yosemite Drive Upgrade Project. In the Project Management and Engineering Department. Public hearing on this item is now open. Anybody wishing to testify, please come forward. State your name and clearly for the record. Spell your last name. Tell us what part of town you live in. Hearing and seeing no one, public testimony is closed. What's the wish of the body?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion from Assembly members. Mr. Steele.
Yeah, this is one of those projects that's been around forever, and I'm glad we're finally dealing with it. But I was involved with the school district when we did the high school, and the developer had a problem with the road at that time, and I'm glad we're finally getting it squared away. We heard the arguments that it wasn't ours to fix, it was his to fix, but I'm glad we're getting it done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Steele. Ms. Dombowski, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to give people a little bit of context with the Yosemite Drive project, we heard earlier commentary on the $3 million plus that was appropriated to this project. When Eagle River High School was built, there was a lawsuit challenging some of the work that was done, specifically to the road and whatnot. It went all the way to the U.S. or to not the U.S. to the Alaska Supreme Court, and the school district lost effectively. So a big portion of the funding for this road actually came from the school district. Some of it came from state. The pre-work was given as a state grant. So effectively, as Yosemite gets done, as Mr. Steele alluded, anybody who's served on the school board knows all about Yosemite Drive. I think there will be a lot of people very happy when this is finally done. So I look for, I just want to say thank you to Mr. Hansen. I know he's out there somewhere. There he is. Because between SBIRSA, between the Eagle River Community Council and the Eagle Point Homeowners Association, there were a lot of people very interested in the secondary lane and the project as a whole. And it's been going on for, would you say, Jerry, 10 years plus? Plus. I would emphasize the plus part. And so I think a lot of people will be very happy to have this project finally completed. So I would appreciate your support.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Constant, sir.
Yeah, curious of the timeline of the construction. When is this going to happen?
It's supposed to be this summer.
The construction will begin as soon as school gets out around the 25th of May.
Any other questions, Chris? Mr. Constant, any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Dyson, sir.
Yeah. You're right. This is a project that's almost had eternal life. But there were a couple others to add. There was raw sewage from the prison that was going into the river. Canoers and kayakers picked up on that. There were significant drainage problems, and both in the subdivision and other areas. It's delightful for me to find out that many of those have been rectified, and it looks like in a quite professional way. And ski trails and jogging trails, now bike and dog walking trails around the area have been really improved, and now the lights are on. And Representative Reinbold deserves more than a little credit for being an almost irresistible force and pushing on those things. And you're right. It's great to see this nearing the finish line, and I appreciate the work that you all have done on this in the interim.
Thank you, Mr. Dyson. This project has been around for a long time. It'll be so nice to not see this come in front of us again. Please vote.
Don't bet on that, Mr. Chair.
You never know, Fred. Sometimes hope is eternal. That is approved unanimously by the body. Next item in front of us is item 14D, Resolution AR 2017-135. A resolution of the Municipality of Anchorage appropriating $511,000 of revenue from the State of Alaska Department of Transportation and Public Facilities, DOTPF, Federal Transportation Equity Act, for the 21st Century Transportation Alternative Program funding to the Project Management and Engineering Department, FM&E, within the Anchorage Road and Drainage System. Public hearing this item is now open. Anybody wishing to testify, please come forward. State your name clearly for the record and spell your last name. Tell us where you live. Hearing and seeing no one, public testimony is closed. What's the wish of the body?
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion from assembly members. Mr. Constant, sir.
Yeah, I'm new to this whole packet. It's quite a lot of information to consume. I went through it a few times, and I didn't see the kind of reference document that shows what the plan is. Is there such a plan, and is it available?
Mr. Chairman, Assemblyman Constant, there is a plan. We'd be glad to give you a full brief on the 10th Avenue bike ped corridor.
Great. My only hesitation is that in the previous administration there was a Cordova bike path upgrade, and they spent well over $1.5 million. And for all intents and purposes, nobody who lives there can tell what actually happened. And I live right there at 9th and Cordova, and so these streets are very important to me. So I'd love to have a sense of what's actually happening. I am in support, of course.
Thank you. The administration, if you can let us know, we'd appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir. Please vote. Voting was unanimous. Next item in front of us, item 14A, Resolution AR 2017-136, a resolution of the Municipality of Anchorage appropriating $760,000 of revenue from State of Alaska Department of Transportation and Public Facilities, ADOT, PF, and Federal Transportation Equity Act for the 21st Century Transportation Alternative Program funding to the Project Management and Engineering Department, MP&E, within the Anchorage Roads and Drainage Service Area Capital Improvement Fund 441 for the Fish Creek Trail Connection Project. Public hearing on this item is now open. Anybody wishing to testify, please come forward, state your name clearly for the record, and spell your last name. Tell us what part of town you live in. Hearing and saying no one, public testimony is closed. What's the wish of the body?
Move to approve.
But moving seconded, discussion by assembly members. If not, as soon as my screen comes up, there. Please vote. That was approved unanimously by the body. Next item in front of us is item 14F, Resolution AR 2017-137, a resolution of the Municipality of Anchorage appropriating $395,745.81 to the State Direct Federal Pass-Through Grants Fund 231 as a transfer responsibility agreement from the State of Alaska Department of Transportation and Public Facilities for the Transit Rideshare Program, all within the Public Transportation Department. Public hearing on this item is now open. Anybody wishing to testify, please come forward, state your name clearly for the record, spell your last name, and tell us what part of town you live in. Anyone at all? Hearing and seeing no one, public hearing is closed. What's the wish of the body? We need a motion on this item.
Move to approve.
And seconded. Discussion from assembly members. Say none, please vote. Item was approved unanimously by the body. Next item in front is item 14G. Ordinance AO 2017-62, an ordinance of the Municipality of Anchorage, Alaska, authorizing one or more revolving master lease purchase agreements in an aggregate amount not to exceed $100 million. That's right. For the financing, I had to make sure I was reading it correctly. I'm sorry. For the financing of various capital assets of the municipality, Finance Department, Public Finance and Investments. Public hearing on this item is now open. Anybody wish to testify, please come forward. State your name clearly for the record, spell your last name, and tell us what part of town you live in. Anyone at all? Hearing and seeing no one, public testimony is closed. What's the wish of the body?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Ms. Dombrowski, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I'd like to give Mr. Harris just the opportunity to explain to the public what this is, because when we see a number like 100 million, it's significant. Mr. Harris, my understanding is through our master lease programs in the past, we had basically a credit limit of about 70 million, and one of those entities is no longer going to be giving us that line of credit of 20, and so with SAP, I think this is a great opportunity to highlight for people what it is, why we're doing it, and also reassure the public that if you're going to spend any money, you're going to come back to the Assembly for authorization.
Thank you. Through the chair. Assemblymember Dabowski, yes, yes, and yes. This is something of a cleanup effort. Going back to 2008 when we first established the Master Tax Lease Program, one of the entities that we had an agreement with for a total facility of $70 million has exited that marketplace. So we looked at this and felt it was time to go ahead and bring the master tax lease agreement that we have up to date, took a look at the amount and kind of thought what we might need in the future, go ahead and give us a little extra capacity on the master tax lease. All of the things we would use this for, we come back to the Assembly for in order to secure approval to use that method of financing. So, thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Mr. Whittleton, sir.
I guess Mr. Harris again. So, I was curious on this. So it's 100 million. Is there? So it's basically this is permission to sign an agreement with Key Bank where the ceiling would be 100 million. And is there an advantage to doing 100 million as opposed to 50 million and coming back later and another 50 million?
Thank you. Through the chair, Mr. Whittleton. So the main advantage on the master tax lease program is that once we set up the facility, we can use it for other items without having to go back through and renegotiate a new master tax lease. So, for example, if the Assembly has something that they want to use this master tax lease facility for, I don't have to go out to an RFP, secure a new master tax lease or another one, a new credit facility to be able to use it to go beyond a $50 million limit. I think right now we're probably at close to $60 million total with the various items we've put on there. Don't hold me to that number, but it'd be in that order. It might even be close to 70 has sort of been spoken for with respect to the entirety of things we might use that facility for. So the real purpose here is to go ahead and give us flexibility to bring to the Assembly for approval opportunities for financing that would be lower cost than other options.
Okay, can I follow up? And I know we've seen a bunch of things where we have a purchase and you're going to, like the SAP, right, is using this. Is there, it's a lot like a bond, but we vote for the bonds and everybody's kind of, we're as a community comfortable with that, but here we're going for things for financing through this, and it feels like it's going around bonding, but tell me that's not the case.
Thank you. Through the chair, Mr. Whittleton. That's absolutely not the case. And if I miss anything at all, I'll ask Mr. Falsey to step in and to correct me. But the reason this is not a similar situation to what we would experience in bonding is in bonding, we ask the voters for approval to go ahead and borrow a set amount of money for a certain purpose, and which, in order to borrow that money, we pledge essentially the full faith and credit of the municipality to pay that off. In this case, because we are going into a financial arrangement with an entity that wants to basically give us money that we can actually purchase an asset, that asset then serves as the collateral equity for the loan. So if, for example, next year the Assembly decides, we don't want to appropriate money for that, the people we are leasing this asset from can come back and grab it from us.
Let's hope we don't do that. Thank you.
Is that all, Mr. Wilton? Thank you, sir. Any other comments from Assembly members? Not seeing any, please vote. Mr. Dabowski, did I miss you? That was approved unanimously. Sorry for taking your breath as I was reading $100 million. I almost thought I was in Juneau for a minute. Next item in front is item 14H, Ordinance AO 2017-63, ordinance authorizing a 3-year lease with 3-year renewal options between the Municipality of Anchorage, Alaska, lessor, and Hiroshi Yutamoto doing business as cafe at the library, tenant for 304 square feet of space in the first floor of the Z.J. Lusac Library located at 3600 Denali Street, Real Estate Department. Public hearing on this item is now open. Anybody wishing to testify, please come forward. State your name clear for the record. Spell your last name and tell us what part of town you live in. Anyone at all? Hearing and saying no one. Testimony is closed. What's the wish of the body? Moved and second for approval. Discussion from assembly members. Please vote. That was approved unanimously. Next item in front of us is item 14I, ordinance AO 2017-64, an ordinance authorizing the acquisition of a perpetual exclusive surface and underground electrical easement of approximately 325 square feet within a portion of Lot 9, Block 44, Anchorage Original Town Site, PID 002-102-16, for an amount not to exceed $38,000 for the State Department and Municipal Light and Power. Public hearing on this item is now open. Anybody wishing to testify, please come forward. State your name clearly for the record and spell your last name. Tell us what part of town you live in. Not seeing anybody, public testimony is closed. What's the wish of the body? Moved and seconded. Discussion from assembly members. Please vote. That was approved unanimously. Next one, from item 14J, ordinance AO 2017-65, an ordinance amending Grangemouth Municipal Code 4.60.260 to rename the Han Commission to the Homeless, Housing, and Neighborhood Development HHAND Commission, and to subname the Oversight Subcommittee on Homelessness HCOSH, Department of Health and Human Services. Public hearing on this item is now open. Anybody wishing to testify, please come forward. State your name clearly, spell your last name, and tell us what part of town you live in. Hearing and seeing no one, public testimony is closed to what's wish of the body.
Move to approve.
Second. Discussion from assembly members. Mr. Constant, sir.
I would like to make a motion to amend. And the amendment would be to change the name slightly, just to flip the words housing and homelessness, so that the new committee will start with the big, the visionary, the hopeful, and finish or move into housing, homelessness, neighborhood development. I spoke with the mayor's homeless coordinator about this yesterday. She said she had actually made that proposal, but it was too late in the process.
Second.
We may have an issue. Let me ask Mr. Falsey, can we change the name and the title, sir?
Mr. Chair, I think you're within your rights to change this title. The changing the title rule is really about providing the public with adequate notice of what the Assembly will be deliberating on. I don't think changing the order of those two words in any way deprives the public of a heads up about what the Assembly would be doing.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I just want to check and make absolutely sure. Mr. Constant, can you get your amendment to the clerk in writing, sir? Sure.
Can I help with the amendment a little?
Ms. Dombowski, yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I was the second on that. I think what Mr. Constant, Assemblymember Constant meant was amend line 22 to read Housing, Homelessness, and Neighborhood Development Commission.
Chris, is that what you meant?
Sounds great.
Okay. And line 25, ma'am?
And corresponding changes throughout the document.
I know this sounds like a small thing, Mr. Chair, but in some ways this work I've been working on for a better part of a decade. It's actually important.
Okay, so your changes on what line?
It would be line 22. It would say Housing, Homeless, and Neighborhood Development Commission, and then the corresponding changes throughout the rest of the document and the AM.
Okay. Does everybody understand?
Yeah.
Okay, is there any objection to the amendment? Not seeing any objection, Madam Clerk. Okay. Clerk advises us to vote. Please vote. I always listen to the clerk.
And
There.
for Mr. Trini, for the record, I think the computer had listed Mr. Constant as the first and the second. I was actually the second, just for the record.
I'm sure Heidi will pick it up, but I'll ask the clerk.
Yeah, I just want to make sure you know he didn't first and second it.
So is the process to hand something in writing?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
That's all right. We'll pick it up. We all right, Barbara? We're good? Okay. What? The clerk made the correction, Ms. Dombrowski. Please vote on the document in front of us as amended. That was approved unanimously. We're now down to item, should be 14-0, because we dealt with the other ones already. 14-0 is Resolution AR 2017-144, resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly approving a marijuana license and
Mr.
special
Chair.
land use permit for the marijuana retail store establishment with license number M10975 doing business as Satori located at 221 East 5th Avenue, Downtown Community Council, case number 2117-0024, Municipal Clerk's Office and Planning Department.
Mr. Chair, before you open
Sir?
the public hearing, may I ask for a moment of personal privilege?
Okay, sir.
So, somewhere I have some notes.
This is on 14-0, sir?
This is before we entered the discussion of the marijuana special land use permits.
For this one?
Sure.
Okay.
It's for any and all of them. It's really a privilege to speak right now that I'm asking for.
Okay, you've got it, sir.
All right. So the Assembly has done a really impeccable job at setting a standard in ensuring that operators who have applied and done all of the work to become licensed for marijuana licenses understand that they have a duty to perform at the highest level. Otherwise, they're under threat of law to lose their investment. The planning department has done an epic job at taking this document here and making sense out of it with the new industry that's developed. And the business interests who are the citizens of Anchorage who are putting their life, their treasure, their livelihood at stake to make these businesses work have done a really amazing job at doing the tango and the dance, the tightrope walk that it is to actually get a licensed business in this town. So it's sad that I will be reporting now on the record that Teresa Collins, an individual who spent the last 8 years of her life working to establish this industry, to help make our codes work with the state law changes, has died of cancer this week. And her friend sent me some words that Teresa was an inspiration in a new and growing industry, and that she was passionate and driven and brave and always warm with everyone, and she lit up a room. No matter how she might have been feeling, you always felt better. Her loss is a loss for the industry, her family, and friends. So just a moment to recognize this woman who spent the last years of her life working hard to see this industry start to bloom. Now, a lot of you might remember her as the operator of an illegal business. That was Potluck Events. And she was never able to see her vision come forward before she died. And I'm just going to take another minute, really. It'll be quick. Governor Hickenlooper of Colorado stated, if it was up to me, I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have legalized marijuana. I opposed it from the very beginning. But he went on last week to say, we were worried about everything. We were worried about kid usage going up, people coming into work high, the branding of the state. He says, we haven't seen anything negative in regard to any of those things. And I think our experience in this town is actually proving that out. I do see a problem coming, though. And the problem is in my district in particular, and maybe in West Anchorage in the Spenard section and some of the hotels by the airport. There are 1 million+ people on their way to Anchorage in the next 3 months Summer's here. The tourist season's about to bloom. In the downtown streets, we're going to see people walking through the streets who are tourists, even if 1 out of 10 decides to walk into a store legally licensed to operating within the law, and they're going to walk out on the street, and they're going to get high in our parks and our streets, on our coastal trail. And I know a lot of people who just aren't going to like to smell that everywhere that they go. So we have an irrational setup in our system right now. And it's a function of state law, and it's a function of local government as well, that there's no place for people who aren't residents to actually go and consume. And so I want folks here to understand that we are probably about to see the first problems that we've had, and it's a problem of an irrational system, not broken people or broken laws. And so we're going to have to address that. And in some small irony, Teresa Collins was providing a place for people to go where they could be off the streets and not causing problems outside. And so I want folks who sit on that Economic Development Committee to know that we have work to do, that we have a challenge coming, and that we lost someone in our community who set an idea forward for us. And so I just lay that out before us now.
Thank you, Mr. Constant. We're now going to continue with the rest of our meeting. We're on item 14O, Resolution Air 2017-1444, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly approving a marijuana license and special land use permit for a marijuana retail storage establishment with a license number M10975, doing business as Satori, located at 221 East 5th Avenue, Downtown Community Council, case number 17-0024. Public hearing on this item is now open. Anybody wish to testify, please come forward. Clearly state your name, spell your last name for us, and tell us what part of town you live in. And before we begin, Mr. Whittleton, can you tell us this came to your committee? And what was the recommendation of your committee?
Before, you want to wait after the public hearing or now?
I want just you. What was the report from your committee?
I'm not sure we had a recommendation on this. We'll have some discussion, I think, after the post. I think some things will be brought up during the public hearing that we'll be prepared to discuss.
Thank you.
Be best. Thanks.
It's now open if somebody wishes to come forward and testify.
Janet Weltzine on behalf of the petitioner. Chris, you kind of threw me with that because it's only been
Ma'am, can you spell your last name?
Sure. It's Weltzine, W-E-L-T-Z-I-N, and I live in Jewel Lake. This is Andrew Baker, B-A-K-E-R. He is the applicant. Chris, you kind of threw me off because I forgot. I forgot. You forget people pass and they seem like they're still here, like I can still hear her testifying to you guys. And what's a video I actually have that I shared with the family is her testifying to you about on-site consumption. So thank you so much for those kind words. And our industry did lose quite a leader. So thank you. I would like permission to approach. We have a handout to help aid our public testimony on this issue. May I approach?
The clerk's here, sir. She'll make distribution. It has to go to the clerk.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and congratulations to the new members. First, the issue with this application is condition number 8 on your staff report talks about a community use and identifies Identity Inc. as a community center. And we are respectfully requesting that you strike condition number 8 from this special land use application. I didn't see much of a discussion or really any analysis from staff as to how they determined Identity Inc. was a community center. Staff tried to contact Identity Inc. and was unable to reach them, but we did, and we provided a letter from the executive director. If you look at item 1 in your packet and turn to the second page, you'll see the definition of social service facility. Social service facility is a facility operated by a nonprofit social service agency which provides services and undertakes activities to advance the welfare of citizens in need. When you turn to item number 2 and you go down to it's a nonprofit corporation biannual report filed for 2016, the purpose is social service. This is Identity Inc.'s biannual report. It identifies their purpose as a social service. And if you look at the letter that was written by the executive director of Identity Inc., he specifically states that Identity is a nonprofit social service organization who has a mission to advance Alaska's gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender community. He also notes at the last sentence of paragraph number 1, we are primarily open to folks by an appointment basis. I encourage you to turn to item number 3 in your packet. Item number 3 is the new Title 21 definition of community center. A community center is a facility that intends to primarily serve the meeting, cultural, social services, administration, athletic, or entertainment needs of the community as a whole. It says that it must be open, generally open to the public. As you can see by the letter from Identity Inc., they are open on an appointment basis. Additionally, Identity Inc. serves more than just the entertainment needs of the community. It provides counseling to people that are struggling with identity issues or looking at how to better fit what they are feeling. It's not an entertainment community use.
Ma'am, your time's up. If you could summarize, we'd appreciate it.
In summary, I would just urge you to actually look at the words of Title 21 and look at the fact that staff did not make an analysis in your staff report, and we have a clear letter from the Identity Inc. indicating it is a social service facility. It is not a community center. It is open only on an appointment basis. It is not open generally to the public.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Rivera, sir?
Yes, I just wanted to declare a potential conflict of interest. As you see in item 2, this is old, but I was served on the board of Identity.
No, it's really the chair. You do not have a conflict on this item, sir.
Thank you.
Oh, the poor foundation.
Mr. Wilton, comments for this individual? Question?
I think actually, I'm sorry, I'll wait till public hearing's closed. Thank you.
Forrest, questions for this individual?
So I will phrase this as a question at the end, Jana, but I think Mr. Dyson has a very good phrase that he's introduced, which is never overestimate the intelligence of people, the ability to comprehend of people up here. So I think you might have lost some of the members at the very beginning because people didn't sort of know what you were asking for, what you're talking about. And so just to frame the discussion a little bit, the people on the CED certainly did. But for those that might not be familiar, the issue basically is a community center has to be 500 feet away, but a social service center doesn't, because of the way we've written our code. And Jana is arguing, and Identity is arguing, that they are a social services center, not a community center. So with that frame, do you have anything else to add, Jana?
Just thank you. I'm going to blame Assemblyman Constant for throwing me off there.
You can charge him later for legal fees.
For 3 years.
Thank you.
Thank you. There are no other questions for you. Does anybody else wish to testify in this item? Anyone at all? Hearing say no on public testimony is closed. What's the wish of the body? Move to approve in a second.
Second.
Moved and seconded.
Point of personal privilege.
Ms. Dembowski.
Mr. Chair, can we have a 5-minute at ease for legal questions?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Early in the night, we'll take a 5-minute at ease. 5-minute break. And we've got some friends here from Norway, I'm told. We could tell by the dress. Come up to the microphone and tell us where you're from.
Thank you for having us again, Mr. Chair and Assembly members. Tonight for Tradition Tuesday, we had our Norwegian community in the house. Maybe you got a waffle that they made. We just heard tonight as well that we have over 19,000 people of Norwegian ancestry right here in Anchorage. There you go. I would just like to say I'm honorary Norwegian as I spent a year in Norway as an exchange student. So I will turn that over.
I'm Ted Berkedal. I'm a Norwegian American, but I was born in Norway, in Stavanger. I go by the formal name Terja.
Thank you.
John Olness. All my grandparents came from Norway. I've been in Alaska for almost 40 years, and I worked for the city for 20 years. So that's it.
Beverly Griffin, I'm Norwegian American. I grew up in North Dakota. My grandmother came from Norway, and all the rest of my great-grandparents. I've been in Alaska 30 years.
Mr. Chair, I have to give her a shout out. Election worker. Woohoo.
Oh, heavens.
Thank you guys. Some of you know me. I'm Ruth Kvarnplass, and I'm in the print shop, and happy to be here.
Good.
Good evening. My name is Karen Rude, and I'm from Seattle. My parents immigrated from Norway right before World War II.
Well, thanks for being here at our meeting. Ma'am?
Hi, I'm Christy Erickson. I have Norwegian and Swedish ancestry, and I'll actually be going to Norway for the first time, and I'll get to visit our sister city, Tromsø, this summer, so I'm very excited.
Well, thank you. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Ms. Bowski, ma'am?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to change the order of the day and take up item 14P.
Item 14P.
Yeah, the reason people are giving me a confused look is because legal's still drafting something for me.
So do we say we continue the public hearing or on the other one?
I think
we can go to item 14P and then come back and pick up item 14O.
Yeah.
That's fine. We'll come back to 14O when we're done with it.
Okay.
Let's do item 14P. If there's no objection from the body, change the order of the day. The clerk needs a second. Okay. Clerk says we're now on item 14P, resolution AR 2017-145, resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly approving a marijuana license special land use permit for a marijuana retail sales establishment with license number M10933, doing business as Alaska Green Light District, located at 405 East Northern Lights Boulevard, Midtown Community Council, case number 2017-0027. Public hearing on this item is open and now open. Anybody wish to testify, please come forward, state your name, spell your last name, and tell us what part of town you live in. Hearing and saying no one, public testimony is closed. What's the wish of the body?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Wellington, from your committee on this?
The Community and Economic Development Committee discussed this at length last week, and we recommend approval.
Okay.
With the conditions.
Any other discussion from Assembly members? Not seeing any, please vote. That license is approved. We're now to item 14Q, resolution AR 2017-146, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly approving a marijuana license and special land use permit for a marijuana cultivation facility with license number M10959, doing business as Green Go LLC, located at 101 North Post Road, Mountain View Community Council, case number 2017-0041. Public hearing on this item is now open. Anybody wishing to testify, please come forward. State your name clearly, spell your last name for the record, and tell us what part of town you live in. Anyone at all? Hearing and seeing no one, public testimony is closed. What's the wish of the body?
Move to approve.
Second.
Mr. Wilton, anything out of your committee on that one?
The Community and Economic Development Committee discussed this at length last week, and we recommend approval with the conditions.
Any other discussion from assembly members? Not seeing any. Please vote. That one is approved. Next one in front of us is item 14R, Resolution Air 2017-147, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly approving a marijuana license and special land use permit for a marijuana cultivation facility with license number M11091 doing business as Tempt LLC located at 2401 East 88th Avenue, Alba Community Council. Public hearing on this item is now open. Anybody wishing to testify, please come forward, state your name for the record, and spell your last name. We need to know what part of town you live in. Hearing and seeing no one, public testimony is closed. What's the wish of the body?
Move to approve.
Mr. Wellington?
The Community and Economic Development Committee, always busy, also talked about this one last week and recommend approval with the conditions.
Okay. Comments from assembly members? See no comments, please vote. That item is approved. Next item in front of us is item 14S, Ordinance AO 2017-71, Ordinance of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly, amending Anchorage Municipal Code Chapter 10.80 to make several technical corrections and minor modifications to marijuana licensing regulations. Public hearing on this item is now open. Anybody wishing to testify, please come forward, state your name clearly for the record, spell your last name, and tell us what part of town you live in. I didn't say it. What, Barbara? You're right, sir. Thank you, Mr. Dunbar. There's also an S1 with it. Any testimony from the public on this item? Hearing and seeing none, public testimony is closed. What's the wish of the body? And we want you to move the S version.
I'd move S1, or the S version. I'm sorry.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion from assembly members. Mr. Wellington?
Yeah, this is the result of quite a bit of work from the clerk's offices, and I really appreciate it. And the impetus to get it done pretty quick here was because we'll start having renewals soon, and we wanted to tighten up the routines for that and make it easier for everyone, and so everyone knew what it was. And just kind of basically some highlights is it covers the rules that apply when when the municipal I got my little notes here. The assembly, it puts the assembly in full control of licenses, and it may let the administrative hearing officer take part in that. There will be no fee for renewals. It's streamlined the renewal procedures, particularly with notices through community councils, and the assembly can have optional public hearings. It also clarifies the impact of ownership changes.
Just add one thing to it. We can send to the public hearing officer, but we don't have to go by their decision.
Right.
The ultimate decision will be with the body, and I appreciate Ms. Dembowski for working on that.
Okay, and there is one
That's something
amendment.
we've been very concerned about to make sure it wasn't shuffled off to some other agency.
And there is one amendment I'd like to make, which you should, I think we all have this. Or it doesn't have a.
What's your amendment, sir?
It doesn't have a number, so we'll call it number 1, and it is simply to change a period to a comma.
Did you want this? Is this going on the S1 version?
Yes.
Because you've got S on the top of it, so you didn't.
It is.
Well, it's the S version, which is 14.
Okay, but you didn't mean S1 version. Okay. Go ahead, John. What?
This just changed the period to a comma. It's on line 11 of 16 of the document, page 584 of our packet.
Okay.
Fairly editorial, but.
Is there a second? Ms. Nabowski, you seconded that, your love of commas?
My love of commas, as many know, in the legal world, a period and a comma can have dramatic impacts on the interpretation of law. So I fully and wholeheartedly support this comma.
Okay. Ask unanimous on this item. We've got the comma in there. Thank you, Mr. Wellington.
Well, thank you, Ms. Demboski.
Ms.
She had the
Demboski,
eagle
thank
eye.
you too. So we have in front of us now AO 2017-71S as amended. S1 as amended. Mr. Wellington?
Oh, sorry.
Anything?
Move to approve? Or are you waiting for me to talk?
We've got the approval. I just want, any comments, Mr.
Well, I'm
Wellington?
done talking. I recommend approval, and good work by the clerk's office.
Ms. Nabowski, ma'am?
Thank you, Chair Trainee. I want to really highlight the work that was done on this and thank Mandy. She's not here tonight, but she put a lot of work into this. So did Erica McConnell, who is no longer with us but with the state, and Dean Gates for his help with this ordinance. As many of you know, the Assembly did our level best to create a system of laws and licensing and all the good stuff that comes with regulation, and the bad, frankly, with this new industry. And what we did know when we started it, there was going to be things that we know we don't know, to quote Ms. Tucker. And as we identified those issues, we wanted to rapidly, in a very transparent way, address them and fix them. So I'm sure this will not be the last marijuana type ordinance for technical changes or otherwise. As the industry matures, there will be things they bring to us or we notice and that we'll go back and address, I'm sure. But the overwhelming thought of the Assembly at the time when we passed the marijuana regulations, and it was unanimous, was that the Assembly would retain full control of these licenses. We were not going to delegate the authority to either revoke, suspend, or modify to anyone else. As you see in this, I'm a big fan of what tools do we have in our toolbox, and that's why I like the hearing officer. Being someone who sat through a quasi-judicial proceeding, it's technical, it's cumbersome, and it's detail-oriented. And so this is what the hearing officer does all the time. So if we have a license that we want to refer to a hearing officer for review and to run the proceedings, it'll be a great tool that we could use. But sometimes public comment and public importance and impact is one that is so great that the Assembly does it on its own. And that's okay too. So this doesn't mandate that a hearing officer does it, but it gives us that tool in our toolbox. So I just really wanted to thank everyone for their work on this particular ordinance, and just caution you, this won't be the last time we address marijuana codes, I'm sure.
Thank you, Mr. Bowski. Any other comments from Assembly members before we vote? If not, we're going to be voting on this item. The CS1 version as amended. That's approved unanimously. We're now going back to 14-0. Mr. Bowski, do you have your amendment done?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to lay on the table the unnumbered AIM that was handed out to everyone. It says the attached letter, it's going to basically allow that letter from identity to be part of the permanent record. So the attached...
Mr. Bowski, the Madam Clerk says it was not passed out.
We said the one copy.
Could you pass it out, please?
Ms. Demboski, Assembly Council just gave a copy to you and me. So if you could just, everybody's got the letter, so if you could just read the AIM.
Yeah, that's what I was about to do.
Yes, thank you.
Sorry, I thought I got it. So the unnumbered AIM will attach to the identity letter that everyone was handed. It is, the subject is AR 2017-144. The attached letter from Identity Inc. is submitted during the public hearing on April 25th, 2017 for this item, stating that Identity is a nonprofit social services organization. And if I could get a second, I'd love to attach this to the record.
Second.
Is that all right, Madam Clerk?
I don't know what's going on.
We need to slow down for a second. The computer's running slow.
It's okay.
Not the clerk.
Well, the clerk too.
No, you're not. You're fine. We okay? We can run verbally faster than the machine can, so we just need to let it catch up to us. Mr. Wilton, did you make the second on that one, sir? He says he did, ma'am. What? The motion was delayed on the table, yes.
I got it.
Okay. Is there objection to this item being laid on the table? Seeing no objection, Madam Clerk, that item has been laid on the table. It's part of the document in front of us.
Mr. Trainee.
Ms. Dembowski.
Thank you, Mr. Trainee. My recollection is the public hearing was closed and there was a motion and a second to approve?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I move an amendment number 1 on this item, and that is to delete lines 33 through 35 on page 2 of 3. That would be page 469 in our packet, and that is item A. It would remove the requirement that they revise the floor plan. If I can get a second.
Second.
Thank you.
She says we're okay.
Did you get that, Barbara?
She says we're okay.
One more time.
Sure.
That would be great.
I move to delete lines 33 through 35 on page 469 of our packet.
It's item 8 on there. It
Yep.
gets rid of it.
It's number 8. And I'll give you my paper. I have it written down for you. And I had a second. Can I speak to it?
Is there a second?
I seconded.
Recorded? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Trainee. During our Community and Economic Development Committee meeting, the committee, not unanimously, but the committee agreed in general that this was not a community center. Therefore, this requirement, this condition would not be applicable.
Mr. Dembowski, I must admit that I was the one that probably didn't want it at the time, but I wanted a letter from identity. This clears it up. We got the letter from identity, which I wanted to see. So, I support this change. Ask unanimous on this. Seeing no objection, this modifies the document in front of us. We now have in front of us 14-0 as amended. Any comments on it? I think we've got a motion to approve it, Madam Clerk, on the floor. Clerk agrees with me. Mr. Constant?
Yeah, just a brief, one last note. The downtown has been unrepresented because of the single-member district and because of the conflict of the previous member for months and months and months and months on matters related to marijuana. And I am glad to report that the downtown is represented again.
I could make a comment, but I won't. Not my purpose. Let's vote. That is approved 11-0. The people in business, congratulations. We're now down to item 14T in our agenda. Ordinance AO 2017-68, an ordinance of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly, amending Anchorage Municipal Code Section 21.09.50 to allow marijuana retail sales establishments in the GRST-1 Original Mountain Base Resort and GRST-2 New Base Resort zoning district and waiving Planning and Zoning Commission review. Public hearing on this item is now open. Anybody wishing to testify, please come forward. State your name and clearly spell your last name and tell us what part of town you live in. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. My name is Marco Zuccaro. Last name spelled Zaccaro. I'm from Girdwood. I'm presenting on behalf of Alyeska Resort Management Company to rezone the two resort zoning districts, GRST 1 and 2, to allow marijuana retail sales establishments. GRST 1 and 2 zoning districts are at the base of the mountain as shown on your maps in your packet. This rezone would be done by a text amendment to the table of allowed uses, adding a T into the GRST locations next to the retail sales. The GRST zoning districts are for resort uses described in the Girdwood land use regulations as largely developed with commercial uses, generally related to the Alpine Ski Facility. The resort districts permit a varied range of commercial uses. This commercial use language is also reflected in the Girdwood Area Plan. The approved area master plan governing the GRST2 district, approved by the Anchorage Planning Department, also refers to commercial uses. There are three main commercial districts in Girdwood: the Seward Highway, the Newtown site, and the Alyeska Resort area. The Alyeska Resort commercial area is the only one of the three that does not allow commercial marijuana retail sales. The intent of this rezone is to create equity and parity with the other commercial zoning districts in Girdwood. From our discussions with the Office of Economic and Community Development, it appears that not including the marijuana retail sales in the resort districts was likely to be an oversight on the part of the MOA due to, in part, to the unique nature of some of Girdwood's zoning districts. Girdwood is the only part of the municipality that has GRST zoning districts, and there's a couple other zoning districts in Girdwood that are unique to it. This zoning change will correct this and recognize the GRST as commercial uses and should be treated equitably with the other commercial uses. Alyeska has been supportive of marijuana retail sales establishments in Girdwood's other commercial districts, including writing letters of support, but has no intention of getting into the marijuana business itself. However, Alyeska does not want the commercial properties of the resort area to be disadvantaged vis-a-vis the other commercial areas. All the existing situation does is prevent owners of similar commercial properties at the resort from competing on a level playing field for potential operators. The existing zoning will likely concentrate shops around the town square. This proposed zoning change will allow opportunity for some separation. The actual impact of this zoning change is likely quite limited, as retail sales cannot be in the same parcel that has residential uses or in the same establishment that sells alcohol. In the GRST1, that doesn't leave many potential parcels. The GRST2, as you see on your maps, is much larger, but much of that land is in DNR, and there's not much of the land does not have developed infrastructure, and almost all of it requires an owner's development master plan to be approved by the planning department. There has been substantial community involvement and input in this.
Sum up your testimony. Time is up, sir.
Okay. All right, well, so there's been substantial community involvement and input into this process, as presented to and approved by the Girdwood Land Use Committee and the GBOS.
Thank you. Question from some members? There don't appear to be questions, sir. Thank you. Anybody else wish to testify? Welcome to the meeting.
Good evening. My name is Brian Burnett, B-U-R-N-E-T-T. I'm a resident of Girdwood. I like to tell people that my dad taught me to ski at Alyeska before the earthquake. I've been around there for quite a while. Like many in Girdwood, I volunteer my time with many community groups and committees. I'm currently the Land Use Committee Chairman. The resolution before you tonight from the Girdwood Board of Supervisors briefly references two presentations at the Land Use Committee and the vote of the community. I'd like to present a brief summary for the 4 new Assembly members and the rest of the group on the rigorous community process in Girdwood. Matters that concern the community are brought before the LUC and then the GBOS, Girdwood Board of Supervisors. The process starts with the Land Use Committee as new business. All community members attending the Land Use Committee have a voice and vote on all matters. New business agenda items are very rarely acted on in the first presentation. Normally, new business items at the Land Use Committee are then introduced at the Girdwood Board of Supervisors the next week as new business. Again, new business items are very rarely acted on in the first presentation. In the next month or longer, agenda items return to the LUC as old business for consideration and are voted on by the community in attendance. This is one person, one vote in the community. The recommendation of the Land Use Committee is set on to the Girdwood Board of Supervisors for their consideration at the next meeting. The 5 members of the GBOS will then consider the agenda item as old business and act on it. The item will then be passed on to the Anchorage Assembly for your consideration. To summarize, matters of the community concern typically receive 4 community sessions before they are presented and become in front of you. In the last year, the community has participated in numerous discussions about marijuana in our community and actions to manage and regulate this industry. In April, We created a document to clarify, to assist petitioners to clarify conditional use permit process, marijuana special land use permit process, and other MOA Title 21 development activities. At that same meeting, we also finished up Turnagain Herb Company and recommending a special land use permit be issued to them, and moved on to the Girdwood Board of Supervisors. In May, we considered the application from the Herbal Cache to also obtain a special land use permit for retail marijuana, and we approved on that. In July, we completed our review and adoption of the Municipality of Anchorage Marijuana Memorandum of Understanding for Marijuana Retail Stores. So as you can see, these agenda items have represented over 20 community discussions. I will argue that the community of Girdwood is well informed on the marijuana issue, and our actions have represented the will of the community. The community process is rigorous in Girdwood. When the vote was taken in March 2017, the community voted in favor of supporting the text amendment to the table of allowed uses. This support was passed on to the Girdwood Board of Supervisors, and the result is the resolution for your consideration this evening. Thank you.
You, sir. Question from assembly members. Mr. Constant, sir.
Yeah, just a comment. I didn't recognize you out of your uniform, the black jacket.
Thank you.
Any other questions from assembly members? Thank you, sir. Anybody else wish to testify? Anyone at all? Hearing the same non-public testimonies, close the votes. Wish of the body.
Move to approve.
Second. Moved by Mr. Welton, second by Mr. Dunbar. Mr. Welton?
I guess there's not much left to say, but I'll say something anyway. It is very typical of Girdwood to have an extremely good public process for everything that goes on in that community. So this has been very well vetted by them. And if Girdwood Board of Supervisors says yes, your default should be yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments from assembly members? Don't appear to be any. Please vote. That was approved unanimously. That is the last public hearing item. We're down now to special orders. There are none. Unfinished agenda, there is none. Audience participation. Does anybody wish to address the assembly on any item for 3 minutes that we haven't dealt with tonight? Please come forward and spell your last name. Not seeing anyone. That's done with. Assembly comments. I only have one comment for you. The clerk handed out this list that shows your name and contact information. Please make sure it's absolutely correct. We'll be sending this to the community councils, and so you'll be getting phone calls or contacts. So we need to make sure if there's something wrong, tell the clerk about it before we send it out. Forever hold your peace after that. And I did go to the Federation meeting on Wednesday and told my community council members that you'll be attending their community councils, and to call me if you don't. So, if I call you and say, why haven't you been there? They keep track of us, and it's good for us to go to community councils, interchange information. So I'll make sure that continues. But anyway, check the sheet, make sure it's correct. Any other assembly comments from anybody?
Yeah, I've got one.
Mr. Walton?
Just briefly, and Assemblyman Constant brought one up on our item 9F2. That's the change in it's AO 2017-74 change, Title 21 regarding separation distances for fuel tanks. We will discuss at the Community and Economic Development Committee on May 4th. And regarding 9F3 about unit lot subdivisions, we have a work session scheduled on May 5th at 10 a.m.
Good. Thank you. And there's some comments? If not, the chair will entertain a motion to...
Move to adjourn.
We're adjourned. Thanks for being here.